Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
The door creaked open as Danny stood frozen, staring at the neatly set dinner table. Presley smiled tightly, her red lipstick a sharp contrast to her pale face. "Surprise," she said, motioning toward the door as three men entered. Their familiarity with her was undeniable, each receiving a touch too intimate, a glance too knowing. Danny's stomach churned as Presley's voice rang out. "Meet Rodney, Caesar, and Emmanuel," she said with a forced casualness. The air thickened. A mocking glint in Caesar's eyes told him everything. These weren't just business acquaintances. "Careful, Danny," Caesar quipped. "Presley tells us you're the jealous type." The smirk on Presley's face made Danny's blood boil. Something snapped that night, but no one could predict how far he'd go to reclaim control or the price everyone would pay. Chapter 1. A warm dusk fell over the modest suburban neighborhood as Danny Morrison loosened the tie around his neck, exhaling the day's tension. The house on Maple Court stood quietly under the purple sky, every window glinting with a welcoming glow. For a moment he paused at the driveway, looking at the place that had once felt like a dream come true. He had purchased it years ago with unwavering optimism, confident that each carefully painted wall, every carefully curated piece of furniture, would shape a life of stability for him and his wife, Presley. But times had changed. Standing at an imposing 6 feet, with strong shoulders gained from his years in the Marines, Danny had a certain gravity in his demeanor. He carried himself with the quiet assurance of someone who had seen real conflict, someone who knew that no domestic squabble could compare to the horrors of combat. Yet as he walked up the front steps, the small pang in his chest reminded him that there were battles on the home front that could hurt just as deeply. He noted Presley's new sports car parked in the garage, freshly waxed, shining under the interior lights. She liked to keep appearances, always reminding him that a good image was everything. In that moment, he saw it not as a symbol of their success, but as a sign of what they had become: separate, superficial, and deeply fractured. Pushing open the front door, he was greeted by the aroma of an elaborate dinner that Presley was never known to cook. He frowned as he shut the door behind him. Since when did Presley spend hours in the kitchen? As he stepped into the living room, he spotted his 13-year-old daughter, Alina, sprawled on the sofa. Her arms were crossed in that defensive posture, typical of a teenager, deeply unimpressed by the world around her. Alina had her father's sharp mind and her mother's stubborn pride. She gave him a quick nod. "You're home," she stated in a monotone, eyes flicking up from her phone. She wore the usual hoodie, concealing her emotions behind a neutral face. He forced a gentle smile, knowing their relationship had grown distant with each passing year. Work demands, distance in the marriage. He was painfully aware it all impacted Alina, but she wasn't his immediate worry tonight. "How was your day, sweetheart?" he asked, sinking onto the couch armrest. She shrugged. "Fine. Mom's making some huge dinner. Surprised me, too." Just then, Presley appeared from the dining area, wearing an apron over a tight-fitting designer dress. Her blonde hair was swept into a sleek ponytail, her lipstick a bold red. The image was jarring. Domestic goddess meets fashion model. Something about it didn't add up. "There you are," Presley said, her tone edged with tension. "I was beginning to think you'd never show up." She offered a tight-lipped grin that didn't warm her eyes. Danny set aside his jacket. "What's all this about?" He gestured to the table that was set with fine china, candles flickering, wine glasses carefully placed. It looked more like a scene from a magazine than a typical Wednesday night in their home. She waved her hand dismissively. "I decided to cook something special. We have company coming." The word company set an uneasy knot in his stomach. Company? He echoed. Who? He would have expected her to mention this earlier. Usually, she'd be texting reminders or pestering him to come home early if guests were involved. Presley glanced at Alina, then back at him, that flicker of secrecy in her eyes. Oh, just some old friend of mine from business circles. Thought we'd do a double date, well, a dinner. Don't worry about it. The explanation was vague and suspicious. Danny's gut twisted with an unease he recognized from years of training, the sense that something hidden was unfolding around him. He pulled Alina aside for a moment, his voice low. Sweetheart, maybe after dinner you can head to your friend Zara's place, or we can do something together. I have a feeling your mom's night is going to be grown-up stuff. He'd do anything to spare Alina the tension of awkward adult gatherings if they were going to be weird. Alina nodded, relieved. Fine by me, she said, pushing off the couch and trudging upstairs to her room. Left alone with Presley, Danny gave her a measured look. You sure about this dinner? You didn't mention a word. She turned, adjusting a centerpiece on the table, her posture rigid. It was last minute. Relax. It's nothing to get worked up about. He forced himself not to pry, deciding he'd watch carefully. All right, I'll go change, he said quietly, heading upstairs to freshen up, leaving Presley behind. Upstairs, as Danny loosened his tie and tossed it on the bed, he heard the doorbell ring. The living room muffled the voices, but he could tell from Presley's bright, almost flirtatious laughter that at least one of the visitors was male. He unbuttoned his shirt, quickly swapping it for a more casual button-down. Raking a hand through his close-cropped hair, he inhaled slowly, bracing himself for the unknown. Descending the stairs, he caught a glimpse of their guests. Two men stood in the foyer, each distinct from the other. The first was a tall, broad-shouldered man with a boyish grin, Rodney, who looked as though he spent far too many hours in the gym, wearing a tight polo that showcased bulging muscles. The second, Caesar, had a more refined aura, sporting a tailored suit and an air of well-practiced charm. A third figure stood behind them, Emmanuel, with an air of quiet intensity and calm, a gentleman who looked both confident and cunning. Strange. 3 men? That made no sense at all. Presley greeted them with an almost overly enthusiastic smile, leaning in, offering each a peck on the cheek in quick succession. Danny paused mid-step, confusion flooding him. She'd said an old friend, singular, but there were 3 men, and from the familiarity she showed, it was obvious they were not just acquaintances from the office. Presley turned to him. Oh, there you are, Danny. This is Rodney, Caesar, and Emmanuel. They, came by for dinner, she said, voice trembling with a half-laugh that sounded forced. Rodney stepped forward first, offering a handshake, his grip too strong like a challenge. Nice to meet you, Danny, he said. Presley talks about you. The subtext in his tone was unreadable. Caesar, exuding a polished confidence, nodded politely. Lovely place you have here? He scanned the room as though mentally appraising each furnishing. Emmanuel remained behind them, offering a subtle nod of greeting, something unreadable flashing behind his eyes. Danny forced a polite smile, concealing the swirl of suspicion within. Thank you. Didn't realize we had so many dinner guests. Presley quickly interjected. I forgot to mention we turned it into a small group dinner. The more, the merrier, right? She grinned, but her eyes flicked nervously to Caesar and Emmanuel, as though ensuring they'd be on their best behavior. Despite the awkwardness, the men all made their way to the dining room, where the table overflowed with dishes that Presley obviously hadn't cooked alone. On the surface, it looked like a lavish feast. Inside, Danny's mind churned. Since when did Presley handle massive gourmet dinners? She used to complain about microwaving leftovers. He glanced at Emmanuel, suspecting some involvement. The man looked like the type who might own fancy restaurants or have chef connections. The dinner began with forced pleasantries. Rodney made jokes about gym routines, each time glancing at Presley for approval. Caesar dropped references to deals and investments, perhaps bragging about his success. Emmanuel, on the other hand, quietly savored the meal, occasionally remarking on flavors, with the knowledge of someone who understood gastronomy intimately. Presley flitted between them, ensuring each felt special. The dynamic was bizarre. As they ate, Alina slipped downstairs, took one look at the bizarre gathering of men, and gave Danny a questioning glance. Danny shook his head slightly, silently telling her to keep away from this. She promptly grabbed a jacket and left to meet her friend Zara, as planned. Midway through dinner, Presley turned to Danny with that false bright smile. "So, honey, I was just telling Rodney about your big security projects at the new firm." She shot him a pointed look, encouraging him to brag. But the entire conversation was overshadowed by an undercurrent of tension. Rodney smirked. "Oh, security? That must mean you know your way around a fight, right?" There was a hint of challenge in his tone. Danny set down his fork calmly, locking eyes with Rodney. "I used to be a Marine. I've faced my share of fights." Emmanuel, quiet until then, sipped his wine. "A Marine, impressive. That teaches discipline, yes?" Caesar chimed in, feigning interest. "Does that help in dealing with domestic threats?" He ended with a mild chuckle that grated on Danny's nerves. Presley quickly tried to redirect. "Oh, come on. We didn't come to talk about fights. Let's talk about something more pleasant." She reached over to refill Emmanuel's wine glass, but Danny noticed how her hand lingered on Emmanuel's shoulder a second too long. The detail pricked him like a dagger. He inhaled and exhaled slowly, deciding to observe. This entire dinner was staged. He suspected it was Presley's attempt to show off new friends, or maybe to flaunt them under his nose. The realization churned his stomach. But why would she do it so blatantly? When dinner concluded, Presley led the group into the living room for dessert. That's when the real strangeness began. She served a decadent chocolate torte, like something from a five-star patisserie. Caesar teased Presley about how he was the real reason she had a sweet tooth, exchanging a flirtatious wink that made Danny's jaw tighten. Rodney looped an arm around Presley's shoulders at one point, pulling her close as they looked at some photos on his phone. Emmanuel poured dessert wine with a sense of ownership, as though it was his house. Meanwhile, Presley seemed torn, attending to each man's needs in a manner more intimate than any normal friendship. In that moment, an unstoppable wave of suspicion crashed down on Danny. She wasn't just messing around. She was openly parading these men in front of him. Their smug, comfortable presence in his home spelled out one monstrous truth. These were her lovers. All three of them. Despite the tension, Danny kept a grip on his composure, choosing not to show his hand. He engaged in hollow small talk, memorizing each man's mannerisms, taking mental notes of their confidence. While on the surface he appeared calm, inside him a plan began to form. Finally, near midnight, the men departed, leaving behind half-empty wine glasses and a heavy atmosphere. Rodney gave Presley an uncomfortably long hug, right before Caesar offered a suave farewell. Emmanuel lingered a second longer, eyes flicking from Presley to Danny, as if challenging him. Then they left. Presley stood by the door, arms folded, refusing to meet Danny's gaze. "So," she began in a clipped tone, "I guess you have questions?" He studied her. "I have an entire encyclopedia's worth of them." She rolled her eyes, picking up random plates to avoid looking at him. I told you earlier, they're my friends. That's it. He stepped closer, voice dropping to a quiet intensity. Friends? 3 men, each acting like they have a claim on you? You think I'm blind? She set the plates down with a clatter. What do you want me to say? That I like variety? That each one offers me something you can't? Is that what you're fishing for? The venom in her words stung. You used to be interesting, but now you're just not enough, Danny. Sorry. His heart pounded with anger, but outwardly he forced calm. Then why keep me around? He asked softly. She laughed, the sound hollow. Because you pay the bills. Because the house is in your name. But I'm entitled to half. Because I can't see a reason to leave if I get everything I want. And maybe I want you to see that I can do what I want. That you can't stop me. He stared at her, stunned by the blunt cruelty. So this is your power play? Bring your 3 lovers here, rub them in my face and mock me? She shrugged, though her eyes flashed with anger. I never said I was a saint. If you can't handle that, maybe you should leave. For a moment, neither spoke. The tension was suffocating. He nodded slowly, stepping back. All right. I see how it is, he said, forcing an eerily calm tone. But I'll be damned if you think I'll be your fool. She merely arched a brow. Do whatever you want, she snapped, but I'm not changing a thing. Without a word, he headed upstairs to the guest room. That night he tossed and turned, rage mixing with heartbreak. Sleep eluded him. By dawn, he had formed a grim determination. If Presley wanted war, she'd get one. The following morning, Alina came downstairs to find her parents barely speaking. She sensed the icy tension, but didn't ask. She simply left for school, hugging Danny goodbye with unusual tightness. As soon as Alina was out the door, Danny confronted Presley once more. This ends here. I want a divorce, he said simply, leveling her with a stare that held no trace of retreat. You want your freedom so badly? Fine, let's do it by the book. Presley smirked, crossing her arms. If you think you'll get out of this cheap, you're mistaken. I'll have half of everything, plus full custody of Alina. A judge will side with me. You'll be paying for the rest of your life. Don't be so sure, Danny said, voice dangerously calm. I have resources you're not aware of. She rolled her eyes. Yeah, sure. I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers. But remember, I always get what I want. He watched her walk away, hatred stirring in his gut. He quietly resolved that she wouldn't get a dime more than she deserved and that her arrogance would cost her. In his mind, the wheels turned. Her 3 lovers had become a threat, each encouraging her cruelty. He would find a way to deal with them. He recalled his old Marine contacts, men like him who had once walked in the darkest corners of conflict. Perhaps they had the means to orchestrate something that the law alone couldn't solve. Thus ended the chapter, with Danny stepping onto a path from which there might be no return, determined to protect what was his and ensure Presley's brazen betrayal and cruelty wouldn't go unpunished. Chapter 2. The next few days passed in a haze. Danny lodged in the guest room, ignoring Presley's pointed glances and icy remarks. The house that once felt like a secure haven now suffocated him with tension. Meanwhile, Alina sensed the deepening rift, though she retreated into her own teenage world, headphones on, eyes heavy with worry. Presley continued flaunting her new open arrangement, hosting small gatherings with either Rodney, Caesar, or Emmanuel dropping by at various hours. The men came and went like they owned the place. It was only to avoid a meltdown in front of Alina that Danny let them pass, each time silently noting details, license plates, small talk, mannerisms. A swirl of revenge fantasies played in his mind, each more grim than the next. On a Wednesday evening, Danny returned from the new security firm he worked at. The job was decent, but it barely distracted him from the chaos at home. He found the living room reeked of cologne and sweat. Rodney was there, flexing in the mirror while Presley giggled at his jokes. The sight made Danny's stomach twist with disgust. He forced himself to remain calm. Confrontation wouldn't solve anything openly. Instead, he locked himself in the den, rummaging through an old footlocker from his Marine days. Among old medals, letters, and photos, he found a battered notebook. It contained phone numbers, some of men who had once fought alongside him, men who knew how to handle situations that demanded more than the law allowed. He scanned the list, stopping at a name. Zara's father, a contact in the underground, rumored to have expanded into mercenary work. He closed the book. Upstairs, he opened his laptop, searching for any mention of these three lovers online: Rodney, the gym trainer, Cesar, the self-proclaimed investor, and Emmanuel, the rumored culinary entrepreneur. He discovered a few social media profiles. Rodney posted daily about workout routines. Cesar boasted pictures of fancy dinners. Emmanuel shared cryptic updates about taste experiences. Nothing too incriminating, but it gave Danny insight into their routines. Another day, Danny found the place empty. Presley likely out. Alina was at school. Deciding he needed answers from a more neutral perspective, Danny visited Adelaide, a local bartender who had become something of a confidant. She worked at the Red Pine Tavern, a warm, old-school bar where many in the neighborhood sought refuge from domestic disputes. Adelaide, in her 40s, with auburn hair pinned up, greeted Danny with a faint smile as he entered during off-peak hours. "Hey, soldier boy, rough day?" she teased lightly, wiping the counter. He sighed, sinking onto a stool. "More like a rough life. I need your ear, Addie." "It's Presley." Adelaide's eyes flickered with concern. She nodded, leaning in. "Shoot, I got time." He explained the horrifying new situation. Presley openly entertaining three lovers, mocking him, threatening him with a vicious divorce. Adelaide listened without interrupting, occasionally grimacing or shaking her head. When Danny finished, she took a moment to let it settle. "That's messed up," she said, voice hushed with genuine empathy. "I never pegged Presley for that type, but guess I was wrong." Danny exhaled, swirling the soda she'd given him. "She's changed. Or maybe I never knew her." "Addie, I can't do this. I refuse to be humiliated. I want to protect Alina from this madness." Adelaide hesitated, wiping a glass absent-mindedly. "I don't condone violence, but are you considering something extreme?" Her gaze was searching. She knew from the tension in his voice that he was on the brink. He didn't answer directly. "If I do nothing, she'll keep them. She's also threatening to get custody of Alina. And she's unbelievably vicious about it. I can't risk losing my daughter." Adelaide nodded, shoulders tense. "If you're going down a dark road, just be smart. The cops around here, they don't ask many questions if you have a decent cover. But still, a mother's advantage in custody battles is real. If Presley vanishes or something suspicious..." He appreciated her honesty. "I'll keep it in mind." He rose to leave, the conversation swirling ominously in his mind. A week later, while Presley was out at some business dinner, Danny got a text from an unknown number. "We should meet. Z." He recognized that initial. Could it be Zara, the teen friend? He realized he knew multiple Zaras. This one might be someone else entirely. Intrigued, he followed the instructions in the text to meet at a local chain coffee shop. That evening, he parked outside the small cafe. Inside, at a corner table, he spotted a tall, slender woman, early 30s, with dark hair pulled back. She wore a discreet black suit, exuding an air of calm authority. As he approached, she gave a brief nod. "Danny?" Her voice was quiet. He nodded, taking a seat. "Zara?" She offered a thin smile. "Yes, but let's keep it at that. I'm here because a mutual acquaintance mentioned you might need help. The kind that can't be found in a phone book." He studied her, heartbeat quickening. "Which acquaintance?" Zara shrugged lightly. "An ex-Marine friend of yours, who's also done some contracting for me in the past. He said you have a problem with a cheating spouse and want a solution outside the law." Danny's blood ran cold, though he felt relief that the chain of contacts was functioning. "So you're in that line of work?" Her dark eyes flickered with amusement. "I handle resolutions. If I accept a client, it's final. But it's not cheap, nor is it simple. Are you sure you want to go this route?" He hesitated, leaning back. "I'm not sure of anything. But my wife is humiliating me, threatening to take my daughter and parading 3 lovers in my home. She's a cancer I need excised, and the 3 men are fueling her confidence." Zara folded her arms. "So you want them gone as well?" Silence. He let that sink in. Could he cross that line? After a breath, he said, "Yes, all 3. They're each encouraging her cruelty." Zara nodded slowly. "Understood. Usually we do a single target. 4 targets is more complicated. Price quadruples, obviously." He swallowed, steeling his resolve. "Money is not an issue. Just guarantee I don't get implicated." She smirked. "I always guarantee that. But you'll have to do exactly as I say. Provide me with schedules, addresses, known habits, no details left out. Then you leave the rest to me." He pressed his lips together. "And Alina?" Zara's expression softened slightly. "I don't kill children. This is about your wife and her lovers, that's it." They hammered out a rough plan. She gave him a burner phone, instructing him to message only through a secure app. "You'll gather intel. I'll coordinate my team," she said. "But let's be crystal clear. Once we start, there's no turning back." He nodded, ignoring the knot in his stomach. "I understand." Back home, Danny began discreetly collecting the information Zara needed. Over the next couple of weeks, he observed Presley and her lovers even more closely, making mental notes of their patterns. Rodney bragged about personal training sessions at a high-end gym downtown. Caesar was constantly traveling for meetings, though he visited Presley on Friday nights. Emmanuel worked unpredictable hours, but Wednesday nights were always his time, with Presley, presumably. Meanwhile, Presley herself had established a twisted routine, some nights hosting one lover, the next day hosting another. All the while, the tension between Danny and Presley soared. She scoffed at his compliance, claiming he was a weak man for not confronting her. Meanwhile, he quietly messaged Zara. One night, Danny found Presley rummaging for documents in the study. "What are you doing?" he asked. She gave him a scornful glance. "Collecting evidence for the divorce account statements, property valuations, anything to ensure I get half, if not more." She paused, leveling him with an icy glare. "And once the judge sees your mental instability, I might get it all." He forced a laugh. "Go ahead and try." A calm sense of finality washed over him. Let her gather illusions. Soon it wouldn't matter. 2 days later, Zara texted the phrase, "We're cooking soup." That was code, presumably meaning the operation was set in motion. Anxiety flared within Danny. This was real. He had orchestrated a quadruple murder, if that's what cooking soup implied. Was he truly ready to see it through? He poured himself a stiff drink, recalling the times Presley had spat hateful words. The memory of how she threatened to let her lovers father his daughter, how she openly belittled him. He pictured Alina's heartbreak. That memory sealed his resolve. He drank in silence, awaiting the next step from Zara. One evening, when Presley was out again, Danny's phone buzzed. Zara's text. "Rodney is first, will happen tonight outside gym. Stand by for confirmation." His heart pounded. He had to pretend everything was normal. Just as he put down the phone, Alina walked by, carrying laundry. He forced a casual smile, but his pulse hammered. If she only knew what her father was doing. Hours ticked by. Midnight approached. Then a single text from Zara. "Soup 1 done." No details, no explanation. Just the chilling confirmation that Rodney was no longer an issue. A wave of conflicting emotions crashed over Danny. Partial relief, partial horror. He gazed at Alina's closed bedroom door, thinking, "I did this for you." But was it truly for her, or to satisfy his vengeance? Sure enough, the next morning, local news reported that a man found dead near his gym was identified as Rodney. Police suspected a mugging gone wrong. Presley heard the news, bursting into tears. She locked herself in the bedroom, shaken. For the first time, Danny saw fear flicker in her eyes. Possibly she realized the men in her life could be vulnerable. That day, Presley uncharacteristically avoided Danny, calling Emmanuel in hushed tones. Danny eavesdropped just enough to sense she was pleading for protection. Emmanuel assured her he'd keep her safe. The next day, Caesar canceled a meeting with Presley, apparently spooked by Rodney's death. But eventually, greed overcame fear. Caesar resumed his visits, apparently unconcerned he'd be next. 2 weeks later, Zara's next text came. "Caesar is in the pot." The plan was to ambush him after a business dinner at his lavish restaurant haunt. Danny prepared an alibi carefully, ensuring he spent the entire evening with Alina at a father-daughter skating event. They posted pictures to social media, establishing a perfect timeline. At the end of the night, Zara's confirmation came. Soup 2 done. Hours later, news broke that Caesar's car exploded in a fiery crash on the highway, cause unknown. Presley nearly collapsed upon hearing, her face ashen. She trembled so violently that Danny had to keep his mask of ignorance. Inside, he recognized her terror. Now, 2 lovers had died in seemingly random tragedies. But rather than consoling her, he let Presley stew in the fear. She might suspect him, but she had no proof. She retreated, pacing the house, muttering about Emmanuel's safety. Meanwhile, Alina watched her mother's meltdown with confusion, but Danny quietly reassured her. "Mom's stressed, but we're fine." Finally came Emmanuel's turn. Zara texted a brief message. "Chef special next week. Need new sauce." The plan was to lure Emmanuel with a false business opportunity. Danny had gleaned enough about Emmanuel's love for exotic cuisines, so Zara's men planned a staged client tasting. Emmanuel would attend an exclusive demonstration, presumably. Danny ensured Presley was preoccupied that night. She had recently begun sleeping with her phone clutched in her hand, as though she expected emergencies at any moment. That evening, Zara's final text. "Soup 3 now boiling. Wife next?" The words hammered in his mind. Did he truly want Presley to meet the same fate? The fury in him said yes. Her cruelty, betrayal, hatred. She'd threatened to ruin him and manipulate Alina. Yet a small voice inside whispered, "She's still Alina's mother." He wrestled with the morality of it. But Presley's monstrous actions overshadowed all. The humiliation, the threats, the open contempt. So he texted back, "Yes, no mercy." Zara's simple response, "Understood." Days rolled by, and Emmanuel's disappearance made local headlines. A string of tragedies, Rodney, Caesar, now Emmanuel, left police scrambling. They interviewed Presley, seeing the pattern that these men had ties to her. She feigned innocence, stammering that they were just acquaintances. The detective, Adelaide's cousin, named Adelaide Davis, ironically, a different Adelaide from the bartender, eyed Presley suspiciously. Meanwhile, Danny, with an ironclad alibi for each death, calmly answered questions. The cops had nothing on him. But Presley's fear had peaked. She locked doors obsessively, kept the lights on at night, and refused to leave the house alone. She even tried to talk to Danny in a trembling voice, begging for his help. He responded coldly, reminding her of how she claimed she didn't need him. She'd become a shell of the arrogant woman from weeks prior. One night, Presley cornered him in the living room, eyes wide with desperation. "Who's doing this? Everyone I cared about is gone. Are you behind it?" she asked, voice shaking. He stared at her, face expressionless. "I told you, I'm not responsible for the choices you made or for random tragedies. Maybe it's just karma." She looked on the verge of tears, stammering. "They each died. I can't. I'm sorry for everything I said. Let's just leave this place. Start fresh. Please." He studied her, taking in her trembling posture. Then he said, quiet as a grave, "Presley, it's too late. There's no going back from what you've done and from what's happened. Maybe you should run." Confusion and terror blended on her face. Without another word, he left her alone in the room. In bed that night, he texted Zara one final message. "We do it tomorrow. End it." Chapter 3. Dawn broke over the quiet suburban street, painting the houses in soft pink light. Danny sat at the kitchen table, sipping his coffee. His eyes flicked to the time, 6:13 a.m. Across from him sat Alina, quietly scrolling her phone, occasionally glancing at him with curiosity. Presley was nowhere to be seen. She'd locked herself in the bedroom last night. He cleared his throat. "Alina, sweetie, how about you spend the night at your friend's again? Zara's place, right?" He referred to her friend Zara from school, not the black-suited Zara. The coincidence of names had long been noted, but he quickly found context made them distinct. Alina frowned. "2 nights in a row? Dad, is something big going on?" He forced a reassuring tone. "Just some stress your mom and I have to sort out. I promise I'll pick you up tomorrow morning." She looked unconvinced, but eventually nodded. "All right. Let me text Zara." Inside, Danny felt relief. He wanted Alina away from the house. If what was planned took place tonight, she needed to be safe. Later that morning, Presley emerged, hair disheveled, eyes puffy from lack of sleep. She still tried to maintain some dignity, draping a fancy robe around herself. Her voice cracked as she quietly said, "Good morning," to Alina, ignoring Danny. Alina offered a polite but distant reply, soon leaving for school. Once she was gone, Presley turned to Danny, voice trembling. "We can't stay here. People keep dying. The cops keep questioning me." He set down the coffee mug. "Where do you propose we go? You have nowhere safer. Emmanuel's big place didn't protect him." She clenched her fists. "We could go abroad. We have some savings. I can liquidate stuff. We can run." Hadiauer. He cut her off. "We? You think after all this I'd run away with you?" She flinched, tears forming. "I'm sorry, okay? I messed up. But I never wanted this. Let's just get out. We can salvage something." His face hardened. "No, Presley. You unleashed this. You told me how worthless I was. Now it's on you to face the consequences." With that, he walked away, leaving her crushed. Throughout the day, Danny meticulously set the stage. He paid outstanding bills, canceled certain subscriptions, and neatly organized Alina's important documents in a locked drawer. He wrote a short letter to Alina, an apology for the chaos. "No matter what, always remember I love you," he wrote, tears threatening. Then he squared his shoulders, texting Zara. "She's alone tonight. I'll be out. Finish it." Zara's single-syllable reply. Understood. Evening came quickly. Presley, increasingly paranoid, hovered in the living room wearing a tense expression, phone in hand. She jumped at every passing car. The entire house felt claustrophobic with dread. At 6 p.m., Danny announced, "I'm going out," his voice deadpan. "Don't wait up." She glared at him, fear mingled with resentment. "You're leaving me alone? Are you insane?" He shrugged. "Why would you care? You said I wasn't enough for you anyway." Then he left, ignoring her sputtered protests. Outside, he climbed into his car and drove to a small diner on the outskirts of town. It was a quiet place with dim lighting, the kind of place couples avoided for romantic evenings. He sat in a corner booth, phone in hand, waiting. Within half an hour, a woman in a nondescript hoodie slid into the seat across from him. She pulled back the hood, Zara. She spoke first, her voice cold. "My men are en route. She's about to receive her final call, the soup invitation. Then they'll do the rest." Danny nodded, swallowing. "I want to ensure no trace links back to me." Zara gave a thin-lipped smile. "I promised that from day one. Relax. By tomorrow, your problem will be gone." He exhaled, the tension in his chest intensifying. "So that's it." She studied him a moment. "You're not backing out?" He forced steel into his eyes. "No." She tapped her phone, sending a final message to her team. "Okay then. Payment is due in full once you receive confirmation. They're professionals. You'll know soon." As night fell, Presley paced the living room, heart pounding at every creak or passing headlight. She double-checked the locks. A storm raged outside, wind whistling against the windows, amplifying her dread. Suddenly her phone rang, an unknown number. Hesitant, she answered, voice quivering. "Hello?" An eerily calm voice on the other end. "Presley, we know what you've done. The soup is waiting. Step outside, or we come in." Her stomach twisted. Who are you? Why are you doing this?" Silence, then a soft laugh. "We're the last meal you'll taste." The line went dead. She clutched the phone, trembling uncontrollably. This was the same voice pattern her lovers had heard right before they died, she realized. Panicked, she typed a frantic text to Danny. "They're here. Help me, please." But no response. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating silhouettes near the front yard. She peered out the window, seeing at least 2 figures. She tried calling 911, but the line crackled, and no one answered a bizarre phone glitch. She tried repeatedly, receiving static. Realizing she was trapped, she grabbed a kitchen knife, mind whirling with regrets. Footsteps thudded on the porch. Her breath caught in her throat. She retreated to the hallway, searching for an escape route. The back door? As she moved, she heard the back handle jiggling. They were coming from all sides. Desperation fueling her, she dashed upstairs to the bedroom. Locking the door, she rummaged in the closet for the old pistol she knew Danny kept. She found it behind boxes, quickly checking the chamber. Yes, it had bullets. "You won't get me," she murmured, tears streaming. Downstairs, glass shattered. They were in. She heard muffled voices, footsteps. With trembling hands, she pointed the gun at the door, bracing herself. Any second, they'd break it down. Silence. Then a gentle knock, mocking. A voice from the other side. "Presley, open up. We just want to talk." She choked on a sob. "Stay away!" she screamed. No reply. Tension stretched. Then a faint hiss, and an acrid smell seeped into the room. She realized too late they were pumping something under the door. Gas? Within moments, her vision blurred. Her chest burned. She coughed violently, struggling to breathe. Outside, the storm howled as a black van idled by the curb. 2 masked figures slipped into the house's shadows. One signaled to the other with a thumbs up. The plan was working. Inside, Presley clung to consciousness, refusing to succumb. She forced the window open, gasping for fresh air, hoping she could climb out. But the masked intruders anticipated that. A third figure appeared at the window from outside. He pried it open, yanking Presley back from the ledge with brutal force. She let out a scream, the pistol slipping from her grip, clattering to the floor. Hands grabbed her arms, pinning them behind her. She was dragged out of the bedroom, down the stairs, every step jarring her diminishing strength. The intruders moved with cold efficiency, ignoring her pleas. They carried Presley to the van outside, tossing her in. She coughed, fighting the gas's lingering effects. Before the door slammed shut, the last thing she saw was her beloved home receding in the storm, an image forever etched in her mind. Meanwhile, at the diner, Danny's phone buzzed. Zara's message: "Package secured. Payment now." He closed his eyes. Phone clenched. The final step. He slid an envelope of cash across the table to Zara. She counted it swiftly, nodded. "Done. You'll get a final text confirming soup is served." He nodded, numb. She stood to leave, pausing. "I hope you find peace after this, Danny." He stared at the table. "I have to try," he murmured. She left quietly, leaving him alone in the fluorescent-lit diner. Rain battered the windows. Part of him felt a whisper of guilt for not comprehending how far he'd come from the man he once was. Another part felt an odd sense of grim satisfaction. Hours later, in a hidden facility outside city limits, Presley coughed and sputtered as she woke, strapped to a steel chair in a dimly lit room. The smell of cleaning agents and something metallic lingered. A slender figure stepped from the shadows, Santiago or some other soup maker for continuity. He wore a blood-stained apron, black gloves, his expression unreadable. She trembled uncontrollably, tears streaming. "Please," she whispered. "Let me go. I'll do anything." He studied her calmly, as though analyzing an ingredient. "Time for you to taste," he said, voice chillingly casual. "We have a special recipe." "For you!" she shrieked, thrashing against the straps, but it was futile. Another figure loomed behind her, a second masked individual holding a menacing tool. She realized with dawning horror that the fate of her lovers awaited her. The final meal. At dawn, Danny sat in his car in the parking lot of a discount motel. His phone buzzed with a single message: "Soup served." Despite the monstrous swirl of emotions, he forced himself to remain composed. He exhaled, feeling a weight lift, replaced by an unearthly emptiness. The line had been crossed. Presley was gone. He thought of Alina, of how she would handle her mother's sudden disappearance. He had prepared a partial cover story, that Presley fled the country under fear, given the mysterious deaths of her lovers. If the police pressed him, he had an alibi and no direct link. Zara had promised to handle any loose ends or suspicious trails. Nevertheless, a burden lay on his heart. He had orchestrated a sequence of murders, culminating in his wife's death. Even if it felt justified, her betrayal, her cruelty, her threats, he couldn't deny the monstrous reality of his actions. But as he started the engine, the image of Presley's mocking grin, telling him he was worthless, flashed in his mind. He steeled himself, remembering her threat to let the men father Alina to humiliate him further. He gripped the steering wheel. "I did what had to be done," he told himself. No turning back. Chapter 4. Days turned into weeks. The local news erupted with reports of Presley's disappearance. Some outlets linked it to the earlier murders, Rodney, Caesar, and Emmanuel, but the police, baffled, lacked any evidence to tie them together, besides each victim's known association with Presley. In multiple interviews, the lead detective, Adelaide Davis, expressed frustration. It's unusual to see 4 adults vanish or die in separate incidents, apparently connected only by personal relationships. We suspect foul play, but we're short on leads. During the initial wave of suspicion, the police interviewed Danny thoroughly, but his alibi was ironclad. Security cameras showed him at the diner all night, validated by staff. He calmly explained that Presley had threatened divorce, was entangled with questionable men, and he suspected she fled out of fear. He offered phone logs showing no calls from him to her that night. Even Alina, quietly though heartbreakingly, mentioned that her father had been calm at home, though their mother was acting strangely. The cops grumbled, but had to let Danny go. 3 weeks after Presley's disappearance, the swirl of attention began to subside. People eventually move on. New headlines replace old. Danny found himself in a bizarre calm like the aftermath of a storm. The house belonged fully to him now, Alina under his sole care. He pressed forward, focusing on giving Alina a stable environment. Without Presley's negativity, he felt free, albeit with a lingering shadow in his conscience. One late afternoon, he found Alina in the living room, staring at an old family photo album. She looked up, eyes misty. "Dad," she began softly, "why do you think Mom left? Do you believe the rumors that someone might have hurt her?" He took a seat beside her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. He'd rehearsed this conversation. "Sweetheart, your mom was complicated. She was scared, especially after her friends died. My guess is she ran. She may surface one day, but sometimes fear drives people to do extreme things. We can't let it define us." Alina swallowed hard, nodding. "I miss her sometimes, but she was so different at the end. I just wish I had answers." He hugged her gently, heart aching with guilt. "I'm sorry, kiddo. I wish it were clearer. But we have each other, yeah?" She gave a tearful smile. "Yeah, Dad." As life normalized, Danny returned to his security job with renewed focus. He advanced quickly due to his composure under pressure. Colleagues admired him, never suspecting the darkness behind his calm eyes. A few joked he had the zen of a monk, oblivious to the lethal truth. One day, while finishing a shift at the security firm, he received an unexpected visitor, Adelaide Davis, in plain clothes. She was cordial but direct, asking to chat. They strolled through the parking lot, an air of tension trailing them. Adelaide studied him. "Mr. Morrison, we haven't found your wife. No credit card usage, no border crossings, no sightings. That's unusual." He shrugged, meeting her gaze. "She wanted a lavish life. Possibly some wealthy partner abroad hid her. She had multiple lovers, Detective." Adelaide nodded. "Yes, we're aware. But 4 coincidences, the men turning up dead, then her disappearance. It's almost cinematic." She paused, letting the implication hang. He forced a sad smile. "I get it. You suspect me. But everything points to some unknown threat. My wife was targeted, maybe from these men's enemies." Adelaide let out a sigh. "Do you want to know what my gut says?" "Sure," he replied calmly. She leaned in slightly. "My gut says you're not entirely innocent, but I have zero evidence, so I'm forced to leave it. The best I can say is, if anything surfaces, we'll be back." He nodded, unflinching. "Understood. I respect you doing your job." With that, she departed, leaving him alone under the midday sun. He exhaled slowly, murmuring, "No evidence," like a self-reminder. The line had held. That weekend, Alina and Danny decided to do something normal, go to the amusement park. After so much heaviness, he wanted to see her smile. They rode roller coasters, ate funnel cakes, laughed in the bright sunshine. For a moment, life felt pure. Alina's laughter soared above the crowd's noise. Danny found a measure of peace, During a quiet break, sitting on a bench with Alina devouring ice cream, a figure approached Zara in casual attire, wearing sunglasses. She passed by as though a stranger, but paused near the trash bin. She tossed a small note into the bin, then continued on her way without acknowledging them. Alina noticed the woman, but Danny quickly shifted her attention. "Want to try that giant Ferris wheel?" She nodded excitedly. He led her away, but his mind flickered to that note in the trash. After Alina hopped on a ride alone, he discreetly doubled back, retrieved the note from the trash. Opening it, he read, "We have an aftertaste. Call me." That night, once Alina was asleep, Danny sat on the back porch, phone in hand, calling Zara's burner number. She answered on the first ring, voice curt. "We have an aftertaste, meaning there's a loose end. My contact says a police detective is too persistent. We might have to handle them." His heartbeat quickened. "Adelaide Davis, presumably. She's suspicious. But can't we let it go? She has no evidence." Zara's tone was firm. "She's a bloodhound. Sometimes that's enough to cause trouble. She might dig deeper, find threads we missed. If we want zero risk, we remove her." He felt a jolt of alarm. "She's just doing her job. She's not like them Presley's lovers. She's not threatened my daughter or me. I'm not sure I want to go that far." A pause. Zara's voice lowered. "Your choice, Danny. But if she's as relentless as we suspect, she could unravel everything. We can handle it swiftly. No more risk. Or we watch her for a while. Let me know." He ended the call, troubled. Eliminating a detective who was simply pursuing justice felt a step too far. He decided to stall. For now, he'd watch Adelaide. If she truly threatened his new life, maybe he'd do it. But the notion weighed heavily on his soul. Weeks passed. Adelaide continued her quiet investigations, apparently hitting dead ends. There was no sign of Presley's body, no digital trail. The three men's cases remained unsolved homicides, each victim rumored to have shady dealings or personal enemies. The city had moved on, fresh crimes overshadowing old ones. One day, while rummaging in the garage, Danny found Presley's old jewelry box among dusty shelves. It was stuffed with worthless trinkets, but also a few diamond pieces. She had left them behind, ironically. He toyed with them, reflecting on the insane drama of the last months. A wave of guilt combined with relief soared through him. Was it truly over? Then, late one night, his phone rang, a blocked number. He answered. A voice he recognized as Santiago the soup maker from the plan spoke in a hushed tone. "We have a leftover." Chills ran up Danny's spine. "Leftover? What do you mean?" Santiago sighed as if annoyed to be clarifying. "Your wife's remains were supposed to be disposed of, but one of my men was sloppy with certain evidence. We found a personal item that might link back. You must ensure the disposal is complete." Danny swallowed, dread creeping. "Where is it?" "At a warehouse near the harbor. The item is locked away. If the cops stumble upon it, they'll trace it to her. Maybe to you. You or I need to handle it. My men are good, but the location is compromised." He rubbed his temple. "So you're telling me I have to go confirm her remains are destroyed?" Santiago exhaled. "Yes, or pay me extra to do it. But we're tight on time. The property is changing owners. Next day or two we risk discovery. Decide now." Agony swirled in Danny's mind. He had never expected to see any physical remains, but if it was a risk, he had no choice. "I'll do it," he said quietly. "Just tell me where and how." Santiago provided instructions. That night, Danny drove out to the harbor's industrial zone, a deserted sprawl of warehouses under flickering streetlights. He parked behind a rusted metal building, heart pounding in the silence. Following the directions, he found a side door left ajar. Inside, the air was musty, the floor littered with debris. In a corner behind a stack of wooden crates, he spotted a metal container. Painted on it was a single letter, AP. He approached it, hands shaking. He forced it open. Inside lay a sealed bag, containing what looked like scraps of clothing stained with a dark substance, a singular ring, Presley's wedding band, and a few other personal items that presumably belonged to Presley. The stench of chemicals drifted out. He realized with a churning stomach that these were the final remnants that could tie her fate to him. He swallowed back bile. Slowly, he lifted the container, deciding to end this once and for all. Driving to an old foundry he recalled from his Marine buddy's tip, he gained access to a large, smelting vat used for leftover metal scraps. No caretaker was around at this hour. The entire place was slated for demolition soon. Under the dim moonlight, alone in that cavernous building, he carried the container up a metal walkway overlooking the molten metal vat. The heat was intense, sweat beading on his forehead. Staring at the swirling orange glow, he hesitated, memories flooding him. Presley's early days, her laugh, Alina's birth, the heartbreak, betrayal. His jaw clenched, tears burning at the edges of his eyes. Then, with a resolute motion, he tipped the container. The items, whatever was left of Presley, plunged into the seething metal. The hiss and flare of sparks nearly blinded him. He watched until no trace remained. He stood there for a moment, chest heaving with emotion. Then he turned, leaving behind the final evidence of Presley's existence. Dawn found Danny back at home, eyes red from the ordeal. Alina was asleep. The house was quiet, ironically tranquil. He collapsed on the couch, relief mixing with self-loathing. It was done. He had destroyed the last thread of Presley's memory. No detective, no evidence, no question of custody, just him and Alina. As the sun rose, he forced himself to fix breakfast for Alina, determined to rebuild their life. He vowed never again to resort to such darkness. He would be a father, plain and simple. That morning, Alina woke to the smell of pancakes. For the first time in months, she found her father smiling, a real smile. She smiled back, tentatively hopeful. The final chapter of his life with Presley was closed. The monstrous path he'd walked had yielded the outcome he sought, freedom and a future with his daughter. And though the memory of each step threatened to haunt him, he steeled himself. He would bury the nightmares for Alina's sake. The rest of the world would never know. Chapter 5. Drenched in the pale light of morning, Danny Morrison stepped onto the back porch of his suburban home, clutching a mug of black coffee. The steam rose in gentle tendrils, but his thoughts churned like a violent ocean beneath a calm surface. The last echoes of the prior night's thunderstorm lingered in the air, and water droplets glistened on the grass. It had been a few weeks since he'd disposed of the final remnants of Presley's existence, ensuring there was nothing left to tie him to her disappearance. Now, the hush of dawn offered a temporary solace he never thought he'd crave. He inhaled slowly, letting the crisp air fill his lungs, then exhaled, trying to unload a fraction of the guilt and relief warring inside him. Alina, his teenage daughter, was still asleep upstairs, oblivious to the monstrous acts that had secured her future. For her sake, Danny vowed to carry on as if nothing had changed. He took a sip of coffee, mind drifting to the detective, Adelaide Davis, who was investigating Presley's disappearance. In the weeks since Adelaide's last visit, leads had gone cold, but Danny suspected she wouldn't stay idle long. The best he could do was maintain the facade of a widowed, stoic father, coping with heartbreak. The morning quiet was broken by the sound of a phone buzzing in his pocket. Fishing it out, Danny glanced at the caller ID, Zara. She rarely used direct calls, typically communicating through texts or the burner phone. This had to be important. Heart tightening, he lifted it to his ear. "Hello?" he said softly, scanning the yard to ensure no curious neighbors were eavesdropping. Zara's voice came low and direct. "There's an issue. My contact says a new detective team has been assembled to look deeper into the triple homicide. They're connecting it to Presley's disappearance more aggressively." She paused. "We might need to handle it." Danny's gut twisted. He had hoped they'd let sleeping dogs lie. "You mean Adelaide's new push?" "Adelaide's part of it, but also a forensics consultant from out of state. They believe all 4 murders or vanishings were orchestrated by one suspect. If they find a single slip, you're done." He resisted an urge to hurl the phone in frustration. "So what do we do? I can't keep eliminating police. That's insane." Zara's tone hardened. "I told you from day one. Either you accept the risk or you neutralize it. Let me know if you want them off your back. But it will cost you. In every sense." He gritted his teeth. "Give me some time. I'll see if I can handle it without more blood." A cold chuckle came from Zara. "Just remember, sometimes ignoring a threat only fuels it. Let me know soon." The line clicked off, leaving him gripping the phone with whitened knuckles. Later that morning, Alina descended the stairs in her usual hoodie, hair messy from sleep, and eyes curiously scanning Danny's tense posture. "Dad, everything okay? You look stressed." He forced a smile, trying to exude fatherly calm. "Just the new responsibilities at work, sweetie. You hungry?" She shrugged. "Kinda. I'll grab cereal." She sidled up to the counter, pouring cereal mechanically. Then, pausing, she met his eyes. "I had a weird dream last night about Mom." His heart gave a jolt. "Oh?" Alina's expression clouded. "She was calling to me from somewhere dark. I couldn't find her. It was frightening." She chewed her lip, blinking away the memory. "I miss her, even if I was angry with her sometimes. I wish I knew where she went." A pang of guilt stabbed Danny. He gently laid a hand on Alina's shoulder. "I know it's hard. We just keep hoping she's safe wherever she is." The lie felt sour on his tongue, but he had no alternative. "I'll always be here for you." Alina tried to manage a faint smile, nodding. "Thanks, Dad." She grabbed her backpack, heading out for school. "See you after, okay?" Watching her leave, he willed himself to remain strong. He had crossed lines he once considered unthinkable, all for the sake of protecting Alina's future from a manipulative mother. If more lines had to be crossed to guard the secret, would he do it? He hoped it wouldn't come to that. Days turned into a quiet rhythm again, overshadowed by the knowledge that detectives might be closing in. At work, Danny's boss praised him for his focus, ironically calling him the calm in every storm. He accepted the compliment with a wry internal laugh, aware how untrue it was under the surface. But that calm facade cracked the afternoon a police cruiser pulled into the security firm's parking lot. People in the office exchanged glances. It was never good news when cops arrived unannounced. Adelaide Davis stepped out, accompanied by another detective with an air of seniority, Detective Garza, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a non-nonsense manner. They headed straight for Danny's cubicle. "Mr. Morrison," Garza began, flipping open a notepad, "we have a few follow-up questions regarding your wife's disappearance." She shot Adelaide a glance. "And possibly about your involvement with her 3 associates. Might we speak privately?" Danny's pulse kicked up a notch, but he maintained a calm front. "Of course, we can use the conference room." In the small conference room, he gestured them to sit. Adelaide gave him a polite nod, while Garza eyed him intensely. "We appreciate your cooperation. We've uncovered some new evidence about Caesar's finances showing large cash withdrawals. And phone logs indicate he contacted your wife just before his death. We know you knew about these calls, correct?" He tilted his head. "She told me vaguely. Yes. She was always bragging about Caesar's money. I didn't care." Garza scribbled notes. "But for the record, you disliked him or had reason to resent him for his involvement with your wife?" He let out a breath, as though carefully choosing words. "Resent is strong. Did I like it? No. Did I have cause to kill him? Absolutely not. My solution was to divorce Presley, not murder her lovers." Adelaide chimed in. "We also have reason to believe Presley was finalizing some significant financial move before she vanished, possibly planning to clean out your joint accounts." He nodded. "Yes, she threatened as much. I told her I'd contest it. Maybe she ran when she realized she might not succeed in court." He shrugged. "I know how suspicious it looks with me being the scorned husband, but you've seen no sign of wrongdoing on my end. I was at the diner all night the day she disappeared, and the staff can confirm." Garza made a non-committal hum, exchanging a look with Adelaide. Then Adelaide's gaze locked with Danny's. "One last question. Are you familiar with a woman named Zara?" The mention struck him like lightning, but he masked it. "Zara? My daughter has a friend with that name, but a teen. No adult Zara that I recall. Why?" Adelaide's brow furrowed. "We found some phone records burner numbers contacting Presley. One is linked to the name Zara." "Possibly an alias." He shrugged. "I wouldn't know. Presley had so many shady acquaintances. Sorry." They observed him a moment longer, seeming unconvinced. Eventually, Garza stood. "All right, Mr. Morrison. That's all for now. If you recall anything else, contact us." Adelaide lingered a second, eyes flicking across his face. Then they left, leaving him reeling inside. How close were they to linking Zara and the hits? Enough to worry him deeply. That evening, anxiety gnawed at Danny. He paced the living room after Alina went to bed, replaying the detective's words. If they uncovered more about Zara, his alibi might crack. The impetus to silence the detectives grew. But was he truly ready to kill officers of the law? Eventually, he stepped outside into the crisp night air, phone in hand. With trembling determination, he dialed the burner number for Zara's team. After a few rings, a voice answered. "Yes?" He swallowed. "It's me. We have a problem. They mentioned a Zara name. The cops are suspicious, and they suspect me. We might need to do something about that. But let's be careful. The detective on the case, could we just blackmail or scare them off instead of—" A pause. Then the voice, not Zara, but presumably one of her lieutenants, replied, "We don't half-measure. If we act, it's final. That's the code." He closed his eyes. Each kill weighed on his conscience, but letting them keep digging threatened everything. "I need to think," he finally said, ending the call. The next few days were a blur of tension. Alina sensed his restlessness, asking if he was all right. He reassured her with vague excuses about work. Meanwhile, Adelaide and Garza ramped up the pressure. They interviewed neighbors who recalled suspicious vans or men visiting, but the trail was murky. No direct evidence. One day, while Alina was at a friend's house, Danny found himself rummaging through old photos in Presley's closet, trying to see if there was any clue to hush the cops or deflect them. Among random keepsakes, he found a small, locked diary. Breaking it open, he discovered details of Presley's affairs, mentions of hush money, and even references to a cunning plan to manipulate him in the divorce. But no mention of Zara. Possibly this could exonerate him, or shift blame. He read an entry that froze his blood. If Danny gets in the way, I'll claim domestic abuse. The gym trainer, the investor, and the chef all said they'd back me. Then I get the house, Alina, and the money. I always come out on top. He exhaled sharply, grateful he'd acted before that scenario destroyed him. She truly was monstrous. This diary might come in handy if the police pressed charges. But was it enough to deter them fully? One late afternoon, Danny was leaving the security firm when he spotted Adelaide leaning against her car in the parking lot, scanning the crowd. She spotted him, waved him over. He debated ignoring her, but that might appear suspicious. So he approached, feigning casual interest. "Detective?" he greeted, voice neutral. She offered a thin smile. "Off duty? Just wanted to talk informally." He nodded warily. "Sure." Adelaide studied him with a penetrating gaze. "I've read some of Presley's diaries. We got them from her mother's place. They paint a picture of her plotting to ruin you financially." He tried not to show relief that they didn't mention the diary from his own find. "Then you see I had reason for resentment. But that doesn't mean I killed her." She sighed. "I know. But these murders all too clean, no forensic footprints. That suggests a professional. A professional usually means money. Your wife didn't have that kind of money. You, on the other hand, might, from your inheritance or from your well-paying job." He forced a slight grin. "You're reaching, detective." She shrugged. "Maybe. We all have regrets in life. But let me say this. If your daughter ends up losing both parents to tragedy, one missing, the other behind bars, that's a damn shame. Don't let pride or vengeance overshadow that." The words stung like a slap. He swallowed. "I appreciate your concern, but Alina's safe with me." Adelaide nodded, stepping back. "All right, Danny. Just keep in mind, the truth has a way of surfacing. Eventually. Even professional killers slip." With that, she climbed into her car, leaving him rattled. Shaken, Danny drove home in a swirl of anger and fear. Detective Adelaide was quietly warning him to come clean or risk losing Alina. But confessing was impossible. He had come too far. The only question, was intimidation enough to deter her, or must he follow Zara's brutal logic? He weighed the prospect of scaring Adelaide with a staged threat. Maybe break into her place, show she's being watched. But she was a cop. If she suspected direct intimidation, she'd triple her efforts. One night, after Alina had gone to bed, Danny texted Zara, "We need to talk privately." She responded with an address near the outskirts of a deserted barn. Driving there, adrenaline spiked. The barn was a relic from farmland days, half collapsed. Zara stood inside, arms crossed, wearing that calm, lethal expression. He cut to the chase. "Adelaide is suspicious. She's on to me. If we do nothing, she might unravel it." Zara nodded, scanning his face. "So you want her gone?" He swallowed. "No, she's not an evil person. She's just doing her job, but I can't let her lock me up. Alina needs me." Zara pursed her lips. "You can't have it both ways, Danny. We can stage a disappearance, but that's effectively the same outcome. The detective might vanish or there's a lethal accident. Either way, that's your call." He felt nauseated. Another murder this time, an upright detective tipped the scale from dark revenge to an abyss. What if we just compromise her credibility? Plant evidence that she's dirty? He proposed, voice desperate. Would that get her off the case? Zara considered. Possible. We have skilled hackers, forgers. We could engineer a scandal. But that's not guaranteed. Cops can come back from scandal if they're determined enough. He rubbed his temples, frustration mounting. Damn it. Zara's expression softened a fraction. Look, your call, but time is running. She's sniffing around. The slightest break could sink you. Decide soon. Returning home past midnight, Danny was greeted by silence. He peeked in on Alina sleeping peacefully, a pang of love twisting his heart. Then he slumped onto the living room couch, mind torn. Every solution carried a heavy cost, another life, or risk, losing everything. As he dozed off, he dreamt of being in a battlefield once more, except this time the enemy wore Adelaide's face, with Presley standing behind her, mocking him. He woke drenched in sweat, morning light creeping through the curtains. He realized with grim resolve that he might have no choice but to remove Adelaide. She was too persistent. The slightest misstep, and Alina's future was gone. He had sacrificed too much to fail, now. The next day, he messaged Zara. "Yes, do it. Make sure it looks unrelated to me." The words felt like ice in his veins. She confirmed receipt, no further questions. Yet as the clock ticked, a swirl of second-guessing seized him. He tried distracting himself by focusing on Alina, suggesting a father-daughter weekend trip. She agreed, brightening at the prospect of fun. Perhaps a short getaway to an amusement park out of town, like a normal father and daughter. But overshadowing everything was the final act. Adelaide's murder. He prayed deep down that, by some miracle, it wouldn't be necessary. But he'd already unleashed these shadows. There might be no going back. The chapter closed with him pacing the living room, phone in hand, staring at the last text from Zara. Tomorrow night. Clear your schedule. Chapter 6. A crisp Saturday morning found Detective Adelaide Davis standing outside the local precinct, sipping coffee from a paper cup. She gazed at the horizon, mind reeling with the puzzle of Presley's disappearance and the men's murders. Something in her gut insisted Danny Morrison was the linchpin, yet every lead was a dead end. She recalled the conversation with her new partner, Detective Garza, who agreed they needed a more direct approach. Returning indoors, Adelaide sat at her cluttered desk, flipping through the thick file labeled Morrison. She documented every suspicious point: Danny's stoic composure, the convenient alibis, the possibility of professional assistance. She tapped her pen on a photograph of Presley, feeling the familiar pang of empathy for a missing mother, even if the woman had questionable morals. The phone on her desk buzzed. She answered. "Detective Davis," she said, pulling a notepad closer. A low voice. "Detective? I have information on Presley's disappearance. Meet me at the old Redwood Overlook 9 p.m. Tonight. Come alone." The call ended abruptly. Adelaide's heart thumped. Anonymous tips seldom ended well, but in a case this cold, she couldn't ignore it. She hurried to find Garza, explaining the call. Garza frowned, arms folded. "Sounds like a trap. You going armed, right?" Adelaide nodded. "Of course. I'll let dispatch know my location. If something goes sideways, they can track me." Garza hesitated, tension in her voice. "I'll park a unit nearby just in case, but I won't blow your cover. Watch yourself." "Will do," Adelaide replied, masking her unease. She recognized the risk this might be the brake needed or the noose tightening. Elsewhere at the security firm, Danny checked his phone repeatedly for an update from Zara. She had promised him details about how they'd handle Adelaide that night. Each passing hour made his pulse pound heavier. He left the office early, citing a family matter. Alina was with a friend, so the house stood empty. At 7 p.m., the burner phone pinged. A text from Zara. "Location Redwood Overlook, 9 p.m. She's meeting a source. We have a plan. Stay away. Alibi." Reading it, Danny's throat went dry. Redwood Overlook was a scenic cliff outside town, known for tall pines and a lonely vantage point. The perfect place for a staged accident or homicide, the final unstoppable step he'd consented to. He forced calm, set up a visible presence at a local gym from 8 to 10 p.m. to secure an alibi. He told the front desk he might do a late workout, ensuring his membership card would record the visit. Everything was meticulously arranged. 8:45 p.m. The Redwood Overlook's moonlit clearing stood eerily silent, aside from rustling trees. Detective Adelaide arrived, stepping out of her unmarked sedan. She scanned the darkness, every nerve on edge. She had texted her location to dispatch, reminding them to expect a check-in every 15 minutes. Her flashlight cut through the gloom, revealing a single picnic bench near the cliff edge. No sign of a tipster. Her instincts screamed caution. She rested a hand on her holstered sidearm. "Hello?" she called softly. The wind answered with a whisper. Moments later, footsteps behind her. She spun, flashlight illuminating a hooded figure in black. The figure raised empty hands, voice muffled by a scarf. "Detective Davis?" Adelaide nodded, tension winding up. "You said you have info on Presley Morrison's case." The figure gave a slight nod, stepping closer. "Yes, I know who orchestrated it. He wants me gone, but I prefer to talk." The stammering sounded contrived, but Adelaide leaned in, hoping for a lead. Abruptly, headlights flared in the distance, shining across the clearing. The hooded figure swore under breath, turning. Two shapes advanced from the trees, masked men carrying guns. Adelaide's heart leapt and she dived behind a thick trunk, fumbling for her weapon. Shots rang out, muzzle flashes lighting the night. The hooded figure let out a cry, collapsing to the ground. Adelaide forced her breath steady, returning fire with two quick shots. One masked attacker ducked, the other cursed, scrambling for cover. The crisp, pine-scented air crackled with gunfire. She realized with dread she was outnumbered. Then, out of nowhere, a second set of gunshots came from behind the attackers. Another person, unseen, hammered bullets at them. The masked men shouted in confusion, turning to face the new threat. Adelaide seized the moment, firing at one, hitting him in the leg. He tumbled with a groan. The other, masked man yanked his injured partner up, retreating into the darkness as fresh bullets whizzed overhead. They vanished among the pines. Adelaide's ears rang with the echo of gunfire. Panting, she scanned for the new shooter. She only saw a silhouette fleeing deeper into the woods. The hooded tipster lay in a pool of blood. Adelaide rushed over, kneeling. Hey, can you hear me?" She pressed fingers to the figure's neck, no pulse. Dead. Blood pounded in her ears. She grabbed her radio, calling in. "Officer under fire at Redwood Overlook, send backup." Within minutes, sirens wailed. Police units and an ambulance converged on the overlook. Adelaide recounted the ambush to a stone-faced Garza. The tipster was an apparent decoy, or maybe an actual informant who got double-crossed. The masked gunmen disappeared into the forest, leaving behind minimal clues, besides shell casings and footprints. Adelaide's hands still trembled from the firefight. "They planned to kill me," she said quietly. "It has to be related to the Morrison case. They don't want me digging." Garza nodded grimly. "We'll intensify security on you. This is beyond typical. We have a professional ring at play." As paramedics zipped the victim into a body bag, Adelaide's gut twisted. Another corpse added to this chain of murders. She breathed in the cold night air, resolving more than ever to crack the case. If these criminals thought they could silence her, they had underestimated her tenacity. Meanwhile, across town, Danny paced the gym's locker room, glancing at the time. It was nearly 10 p.m. He'd been seen by staff on camera. That was his alibi. He checked the burner phone anxiously for an update. None came. At 10:15, he left the gym, sat in his car, waiting. His mind reeled with nightmares of Adelaide's demise. Was it done? Why no text from Zara? At 10:30, a call from Zara finally arrived. He answered in a hushed tone. "Is it over?" Her voice was tight. "No, we failed. Someone else intervened. Our men had to retreat. The detective is alive. Also, a civilian died, likely an informant. The area swarmed with cops." She paused, frustration in her voice. "The detective is doubling down. She'll suspect a big conspiracy now. We must regroup." Danny's stomach lurched. Damn it, she's not backing down. Are we compromised? Zara exhaled. "We left no direct link, but it's messy. She'll suspect you more than ever. We can try again, but now she'll be hypervigilant. More complicated." He felt like the walls were closing in. "All right, let me think," he rasped, ending the call. Returning home, Danny found Alina asleep. The house was eerily silent. No Presley to greet him. He sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. The attempt on Adelaide's life had failed, raising the stakes. He dreaded the next steps. The police would be unstoppable now. A near assassination of a detective? They'd tear the city apart for answers. He stared at Presley's old framed photo on the mantel. The memory of her cruelty flickered. "This is your fault," he muttered bitterly, though the rational part of him recognized his own choices as well. One thing was clear. If Adelaide survived, he might not. Over the next week, the city reeled from the Redwood Overlook ambush. Headlines screamed about the brazen attempt on Detective Davis. She refused to shy away, giving a press statement. "This attack only strengthens our resolve to bring justice." She appeared on local news, a bruise on her temple from a near-miss bullet graze. At the precinct, an emergency task force formed. They rummaged through old leads, re-interviewed persons of interest, including Danny. He expected them any day. He even saw an unmarked car parked at the end of his street, more often surveillance, presumably. Alina noticed. "Dad, why is that car there every evening?" He feigned ignorance. "Probably some neighbor or a cop doing routine checks." "Don't worry." She eyed him with a mixture of concern and confusion. "Okay," she replied quietly, sensing something bigger at play. Needing counsel, Danny set up another covert meet with Zara in a parking garage downtown. She arrived in a discreet sedan, tinted windows. He slipped into the passenger seat, scanning for watchers. Zara started the engine, letting it idle to avoid suspicion. "We tried once, and it failed. Adelaide's now extremely guarded, likely wearing a vest, possibly with a protective detail. I have a specialized team that can handle it, but the risk is huge. Price has doubled." He clenched his jaw. "Is there no other way? She's tough and moral. If I try to bribe or discredit her..." Zara shook her head. "She survived a direct ambush. She won't be spooked easily. People like her only get more determined. We can do a deeper infiltration, like sabotage her personal life, but that's not guaranteed. Meanwhile, every day, she digs deeper into your background." Danny's frustration flared. "Then do it. Name the price, I'll pay." She nodded. "We'll strike again soon. But know this. If we fail twice, she might become untouchable. And if that happens, your entire operation is exposed." A heavy weight settled on his shoulders. "Understood." As he exited the car, she grabbed his arm softly. "We're near the end, Danny. Make sure you're truly ready for the consequences." He shook her hand off, silent, and strode away into the busy street. There was no turning back. Chapter 7. Detective Adelaide Davis felt the tension in her neck as she strode through the bustling precinct. The Redwood Overlook incident left her with a throbbing bruise near her temple, but it also fueled her determination like never before. She approached the large evidence board in the central briefing room, photos of Presley, Rodney, Caesar, and Emmanuel pinned up, lines drawn to a center photo of Danny Morrison. She pinned a new note. Ambush at Redwood Overlook, unknown assailants, near success. Detective Garza joined her, shaking her head at the chaotic board. How do we connect these dots? The men died in seemingly separate incidents. Presley vanished. Then you're almost killed. All signs say an organized group is cleaning house. Maybe a contract killer or a network. Adelaide rubbed her bruised temple. And the only common thread is Danny. Everything else is speculation. No direct evidence. We need a break. At that moment, a young officer hurried up. Ma'am, we found new CCTV footage from near Redwood Overlook. It's partial, but might show the getaway vehicle. Adelaide's eyes lit up. Let's see it. They rushed to a desk, examining grainy footage from a gas station a mile from the overlook. The camera caught a black SUV speeding by around the time of the attack. The resolution was poor, but the shape was distinct. She frowned. Could be something. Check if any SUVs matching that shape belong to known criminals, or if it's stolen. Garza nodded. On it. Though a small clue, Adelaide felt a surge of hope. Maybe they'd trace the vehicle, link it to whomever orchestrated these murders. She refused to let fear hamper. Her someone clearly wanted her dead, which only confirmed she was on the right track. That evening, Danny sat in the living room waiting for Alina to come home from a late study group. He kept checking the clock. Tension gnawed at him because he knew Zara's team might attempt a second strike on Adelaide any day. If they succeeded, the risk was she might have left behind a final clue implicating him. If they failed, it was even worse. He felt trapped in a corner. Finally, Alina walked in, wearing her backpack slung low. "Hey, Dad," she murmured, dropping onto the couch. He offered a small smile. "All good at school?" She shrugged. "Math test was brutal, but I think I did okay." She studied his tense posture. "You sure everything's fine? You look worried all the time." He forced a gentle tone. "Just grown-up stuff. Nothing you need to fret over. I promise you and I are safe." She nodded slowly, not entirely convinced. "I guess I trust you." Then she wandered upstairs, leaving him to brood in the silent living room. Late that night, while he lay half awake, the burner phone vibrated. He answered in the dark, voice thick with anxiety. Zara's calm whisper filled the line. "Attempt on Adelaide tomorrow night. She attends a local fundraiser event. We'll strike in the parking structure. Just be sure your alibi is airtight." He clutched the phone, heart pounding. "Yeah, I'll do that." He ended the call with dread. Even if he rationalized that Adelaide was a threat, a large part of him recoiled from killing a cop. But it was too far gone. He had to see it through. The next day, he meticulously prepared. He arranged a dinner with Alina at a crowded restaurant, ensuring credit card receipts, security cameras, and a friend from work to join them. The perfect public setting. Then, after dinner, he'd drop Alina at a friend's for a sleepover, guaranteeing he wasn't near the scene. That was the plan. Night fell. In the city's downtown area, the fundraiser for victims of violent crime took place in a grand hotel. Detective Adelaide Davis attended as a gesture of solidarity, her presence a statement that law enforcement stood with the community. She wore formal attire, her hair covering the faint bruise from the Overlook ambush. The event was lively, with speeches, silent auctions, and donors mingling. She maintained vigilance, scanning the crowd for suspicious faces. The notion that an assassin might lurk in the shadows never left her mind. The success of the ambush made her more cautious than ever. Around 9 p.m., she quietly excused herself, leaving the ballroom. The elevator took her to the parking structure on the 3rd level, where her car waited among a few others. She clutched her small handbag, inside which her sidearm was discreetly holstered. Her nerves sizzled with adrenaline, suspecting danger at every turn. Oblivious to her silent watchers, she stepped into the dimly lit parking area. Echoes of footsteps reverberated. She paused, listening. A sudden flicker of motion in her peripheral vision made her spin around, drawing her gun in a flash. 3 masked figures emerged from behind pillars, weapons glinting under the fluorescent lights. They advanced quickly, trying to flank her. One raised a pistol, barking, "Drop it, detective!" Adelaide's mind blazed. No negotiation. She fired 2 rounds at the first attacker, forcing him to dive behind a parked car. The second opened fire, bullets zipping past her. She rolled behind a concrete column, calling into her radio earpiece. "Officer under fire at the Grand Hotel parking structure, level 3. She prayed backup would arrive swiftly. The men advanced with lethal coordination. Muzzle flashes lit the gloom. She returned fire, each shot carefully placed. One attacker stumbled with a grunt, then resumed firing, clearly wearing body armor. She cursed under her breath, heart pounding at the realization they were well-prepared professionals. The fight was fierce. Adelaide found herself pinned behind the column, bullets ricocheting off metal and concrete. The attackers pressed forward in a deadly pincer move. She reloaded with shaky hands, sweat dripping down her temple. This was no random mugging. They aimed to kill. Suddenly, an engine roared near them. Headlights flared across the parking level, and a sleek black car screeched in, nearly striking 2 of the masked men. Surprised, they scattered. The driver, a figure in a hoodie, leaned out, brandishing a firearm, firing at the attackers. Adelaide seized the chance, stepping out to provide covering fire. One of the masked men collapsed, shot in the leg. Another was clipped in the shoulder and retreated with a curse. Seizing the opening, the black car's passenger door flung open. A voice inside shouted at Adelaide, "Get in!" For a split second, her instincts screamed not to trust a random savior, but the attackers were regrouping. She risked it. Sprinting across the concrete, bullets whizzing, she dove into the passenger seat. The door slammed shut. The car peeled out, tires squealing, leaving the gunman cursing behind them. Adelaide caught her breath, adrenaline surging, as the car sped down the ramps, exiting the parking structure onto the city streets. She raised her gun warily at the driver, who still wore a hood. "Who the hell are you?" she demanded, heart pounding. The driver's voice, distorted by adrenaline, barked, "I'm your best chance at survival. They want you dead. Let's say I have a grudge against them too." She couldn't see the driver's face. That was clearly intentional. She pressed a hand to her temple, trying to steady her breathing. "You saved my life." "But why?" The driver made a sharp turn, tires squealing. "Because the enemy of my enemy is my friend for now. Let's leave it at that." He accelerated, weaving through traffic. She considered her options. She could try to force him to stop, but that might land her back in the attacker's sights. For now, she'd play along. "Pull over somewhere safe. We can talk." He snorted. "Nowhere is safe for you. They have eyes everywhere. But I'll drop you off at a place they can't easily reach. Then we're even." She frowned, uneasy. This mysterious rescuer seemed to have intimate knowledge of the killer's network. She tried to glean more. "I need names. Who are they? Why are they after me?" He hesitated, then said, "They're part of a professional outfit. Contract killers. You got too close to unearthing their clients' involvement in multiple murders, so they want you gone." Her mind leapt to Danny Morrison. A professional ring. A well-funded client, it fit her theory. The question was who this driver was. Another player on the board? She decided not to push too hard, focusing on staying alive. Finally, after a tense ride, the car screeched to a halt in an abandoned warehouse district near the river. The driver rummaged in the back seat. "Take these," he muttered, tossing a burner phone and a small envelope onto her lap. Adelaide eyed them suspiciously. He continued, "The phone has my number. If you want to survive, use it only once. Then trash it. The envelope holds partial intel on their group, enough to start unraveling them if you dig right. But be discreet. They have deep reach." Adelaide's heartbeat raced. "Why are you helping me?" He paused, gripping the wheel. "Let's say I have a personal score to settle with them. They double-crossed me. Don't assume we're allies for life. But for now, we share an enemy." With that, he reached over, popped the passenger door open. "Go, don't mention me, stay alert." She slid out, gun still in hand, stepping onto the deserted street. Before she could protest further, the driver sped away, leaving her bathed in the glow of a flickering street lamp. She glanced around, adrenaline still high. The burner phone felt ominous in her hand. The envelope, her potential key to finally exposing the puppet master behind Presley's murder spree. Cautiously, she dialed into dispatch, reporting her location. Within minutes, a patrol car arrived, confusion obvious on the officers' faces. She stashed the new phone and intel discreetly, offering a vague explanation of an unknown Good Samaritan rescue. They escorted her back to the station, where an irate Garza demanded details. Shaken but alive, Adelaide realized she was deeper than ever in this twisted labyrinth. And if the conspirators had gone to such lengths, they were far from done. Across town, Danny sat at a diner with Alina, forcing a fatherly smile as she chatted about school. Inside, dread coiled around his heart. The second attempt on Adelaide would be tonight. He prayed for confirmation that she was eliminated, or at least no blowback on him. But around 10 p.m., a text from Zara shattered his illusions. Failed. She escaped. Some unknown factor intervened. "We have men down. She's alive." Ice trickled down his spine. Another failure. Another fiasco. The message ended with a chilling line. "We suspect infiltration. Our operation is compromised. We will regroup, but watch your back." He stuffed the phone away, face pale. Alina noticed, halting her story about a chemistry project. "Dad, you okay? You look sick." He forced a wan smile. "Just not feeling well. Let's get home." That night, Danny paced the living room into the small hours, heart hammered by panic. Adelaide was unstoppable. Now Zara's team suspected infiltration, meaning some outside party was thwarting the hits, possibly a rival group or someone with their own agenda. Meanwhile, the detective had gained a second lease on life, likely more determined than ever. He felt the walls closing in. He had initiated the chain reaction that turned a cheating scandal into a blood-soaked saga. Now every moment threatened to unravel him. In the quiet gloom, he stared at the ghostly reflection of himself in the window, haunted by the question, was it all worth it? Chapter 8. The new morning dawned with swirling rumors about the attempted assassination of Detective Adelaide Davis at the fundraiser. The local news replayed the dramatic storyline, how she narrowly escaped armed attackers, how a mysterious third party intervened. The city buzzed with conspiracies. Some speculated a vigilante saved her, others blamed gangs. In the precinct, Adelaide pored over the envelope left by her unknown savior. Inside were scraps of data, partial names, coded transactions, references to hits including Presley and her lovers. The details were cryptic, but pointed to a single orchestrator employing an organization for multiple murders. Adelaide's breath caught at the typed mention of Zara's group. It matched the rumor of a mysterious female broker managing contract killers. She also found references to the Morrison case. She clenched her jaw. This was the thread she needed. Calling Garza into a secure briefing room, Adelaide laid out the new evidence. I don't know who gave me this, but it's explosive. If it's genuine, we have a murder-for-hire ring, and the connection to Danny Morrison is strong. Garza's eyes widened. We can't present this in court. It's off the record, but we can use it to guide our official search for legal proof. Adelaide nodded. Yes. We build a real case using standard procedures guided by these clues. Once we cross-check phone records, bank transfers, we might link Danny to them. We keep quiet about how we got it. Garza glanced at the typed papers. Then we reel him in. But be cautious, these killers already tried to remove you. Adelaide gave a determined half-smile. Danger or not, we're close. Let's bring them down. Meanwhile, Danny found himself at the security firm again, jittery and unable to concentrate. His phone vibrated with a text from Zara. We're compromised. Laying low. Don't contact us. Next time we meet, we might be under duress. Good luck. He swallowed hard, realizing Zara's network was retreating, possibly suspecting infiltration or betrayal. He was effectively alone, with no further help from them. If Adelaide uncovered the truth, he had no more lifelines. At lunch, he abruptly left the office, driving aimlessly through the city. Guilt and terror warred within him. He considered running, taking Alina, fleeing the country. But how? He had a mortgage, social ties, Alina's schooling. Where would they go? And the act of running might confirm his guilt, guaranteeing the detective's pursuit. Eventually, he parked by the waterfront, stepping out to stare at the shimmering water. The mild breeze did little to soothe his roiling thoughts. He recalled how thoroughly he'd manipulated the circumstances to kill Presley, the three lovers, the near attempts on Adelaide. He'd destroyed every trace of Presley, but had he truly destroyed suspicion? That afternoon, he picked Alina up from school. She seemed subdued, picking at her lunch leftovers in the passenger seat. Dad, Miss Adelaide visited my school. She asked if I was comfortable at home, she said, voice quivering. Why is a detective asking me that? She mentioned stuff about my mother. His knuckles tightened on the steering wheel. She's just doing her job, investigating the disappearance. Don't worry about it. We have nothing to hide. Alina fiddled with a loose thread on her jeans. It's scary. I miss Mom, but also she changed so much. Part of me is relieved she's not around to fight with you. Am I a bad person for that? She blinked back tears. Danny's chest ached. No, sweetheart. You're not bad. You're honest. She hurt both of us. But you deserve peace. She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. He reached over, gently patting her arm. Inside, he gritted his teeth. Adelaide's meddling had begun to rattle Alina's sense of security. His anger flared anew, though a part of him knew Adelaide was simply trying to protect a minor. Days later, Adelaide and Garza made a quiet breakthrough. Following the unofficial leads from the envelope, they cross-referenced suspicious cash withdrawals from Danny's accounts. Indeed, in the weeks prior to each murder, large sums were moved to untraceable instruments. The amounts matched the suspected fees for contract hits, if the rumored rates were accurate. Garza tapped a printed statement with her pen. He withdrew large amounts in weird increments, like $15,000 here, $30,000 there, converted them into bearer bonds or cashier's checks. The timeline aligns suspiciously with each lover's death and Presley's disappearance. Adelaide's eyes glinted. That's motive plus financial trace. If we can't get direct proof of the killers, we can at least show he financed something. Let's get a subpoena for these records. A judge might be reluctant given the lack of direct links, but it's a start. Garza nodded. Also, phone logs. He was supposedly at the gym or diner each time, but let's see if location data from cell towers might place him near any suspicious sites. Adelaide smirked. He might have used a burner phone, but let's not underestimate forensic tech. They can track signals or cross-reference known hotspots. The plan was set. Soon they'd formally request digital forensics on Danny's devices, finances, and location data. The net tightened. That night, Danny prepared dinner for Alina, forcing a veneer of normalcy. They chatted about her day, occasionally joking. The tension weighed less on her now, trusting her father's reassurances. But for him, each moment felt like a ticking countdown. Adelaide must be building a case. He spotted an unmarked car passing by the house again. After Alina went upstairs to do homework, Danny retreated to the den. He rummaged for the diaries Presley left, reading them carefully. If the diaries showcased her manipulative nature, maybe it would help him push a narrative that she fled to avoid legal consequences. But the diaries also implicated him if read incorrectly. He found references to arguments about finances, his potential for violence, if provoked. A double-edged sword. As the clock neared midnight, a sudden pounding on the front door jarred him upright. Instantly alarmed, he approached, peering through a side window. A figure stood on the porch, sweaty, frantic. He recognized the short-hair Santiago, the soup maker. He quickly opened the door, glancing around to ensure no watchers. "Are you insane? Coming here?" he hissed. Santiago slipped inside, eyes darting. He wore a simple black jacket smelling faintly of motor oil. "I had no choice," he muttered. "Zara is missing." Danny's blood ran cold. "Missing? How?" Santiago wiped sweat from his brow. "We suspect betrayal from within. She left for a meeting with her second-in-command and vanished. Our safe house found ransacked. Someone systematically destroying our group." Danny stared, mind reeling. So the mysterious infiltration was intensifying. "How does that involve me?" Santiago gave a bitter laugh. "You contracted us. We completed your tasks. Now the entire operation is compromised. If someone took Zara, they might torture her for info. She knows your identity, the details of your contract." Fear flared in Danny's chest. If Zara was tortured, she might reveal everything about his arrangement, implicating him in 4 murders. He swallowed thickly. "So, what do we do?" Santiago paced the living room, voice taut with suppressed panic. "We have a lead on a location. If we can extract Zara before she breaks, we salvage the secrecy. If not..." He glared at Danny. "It's your funeral too, pal. We need your help, or at least your resources." Danny's mind whirled. He never wanted to get so deeply entangled. "I'm not a professional killer. Are you insane? I can't storm some hideout." Santiago sneered. "Your Marine background begs to differ. We have men, but they're spread thin. We plan to move tomorrow night. If we succeed, Zara remains silent. If we fail, she might reveal your name to our enemies or the cops." A suffocating sense of doom pressed on Danny. Either he participated in a rescue mission or risked his entire scheme unraveling if Zara was compromised. He rubbed his temples. "Damn it, I'll help, but we keep it minimal. My daughter, she's priority. I can't vanish or get arrested." Santiago nodded curtly. "We meet tomorrow, 8 p.m. Pier 14. The infiltration might be bloody, but it's our only chance." After Santiago slipped out, Danny felt physically ill. Another violent operation, this time to rescue the very broker who arranged Presley's murder. But if it prevented the truth from leaking, he had no choice. At dawn, he left a note for Alina, explaining he might be out late for work. He arranged for her to stay overnight with a friend, forging yet another lie to protect her from the chaos. He dreaded how many lies he had spun, but saw no alternative. That afternoon, Detective Adelaide swung by once more, politely knocking. He met her on the porch, heart pounding. She offered a mild smile. "Mr. Morrison, I wanted to let you know we've initiated a deeper financial inquiry. We'll be requesting your bank statements. This is standard procedure. No need to be alarmed. Inside, panic. But outwardly, he feigned cooperation. Sure. Do what you need. I have nothing to hide. Adelaide studied him carefully. Sometimes people think they're safe until the smallest detail trips them up. If there's anything you want to clarify before we proceed, now's the time. He gave a pensive nod. I just want my wife found, Detective. She exhaled. So do I. Then she departed, leaving him to quake with dread over the upcoming infiltration with Santiago. Night fell quickly. The city lights blinked under a cloudy sky as Danny parked near Pier 14, an old shipping dock with rusted cargo containers. The air smelled of salt water and diesel. He wore dark clothing, a baseball cap pulled low. He carried a sidearm from his Marine days, a piece he kept hidden from official paperwork. If they succeeded, he'd be one step from security. If they failed, he'd be done for. Santiago emerged from behind a stack of crates, accompanied by 3 hardened men, each toting rifles. They exchanged terse nods. We found Zara's location. An abandoned warehouse by the canal. Rival group holding her. We suspect they want info on her clients like you, Morrison, Santiago said pointedly. One of Santiago's men, grizzled and tall, spat on the ground. We go in, neutralize hostiles, grab Zara, and burn any evidence, quick in and out. Danny forced a tight-lipped nod, adrenaline spiking. This was as insane as launching a Black Ops mission in the middle of a city. But the alternative was letting Zara leak his identity. Their small convoy of 2 vehicles left the pier, heading to the designated warehouse on the outskirts. The ride was tense and silent. Danny's mind flickered between Alina's face and the lethal showdown awaiting him. Upon arrival, they parked in darkness, cutting headlights. The warehouse loomed, faintly lit from within. Santiago's men checked gear, nodding solemnly. Quiet as ghosts, the group moved to a side door. Muffled voices came from inside, possibly the captors. A man from Santiago's team expertly picked the lock. The door swung open with a soft creak. Guns raised, they slipped into a dim corridor, the stench of mildew thick. Through the gloom, Danny's heart hammered. He recognized the layout from a previous infiltration in the Marines, a large open central space, catwalks overhead. Suddenly, a guard appeared, startled by their presence. Santiago's man fired a silenced shot, dropping him before he could raise an alarm. They pressed on. Another guard stepped out, receiving a bullet from Danny's weapon. The old reflexes came surging back, equal parts horrifying and comforting. He was lethal again, for a cause that twisted his moral compass. Chapter 9. A single, flickering light bulb hung from the ceiling of the abandoned warehouse, casting long shadows on the grime-coated floor. Danny pressed his back against the cold concrete wall, weapon clutched tightly in his hand. He glanced down, noticing the faint tremor in his fingers, an echo of the Marine reflexes he once took for granted, now fueled by adrenaline and dread. Beside him, Santiago crouched low, scanning the dim corridor with hawk-like vigilance. 2 men from Santiago's team, both heavily armed and silent as wraiths, flanked them. The air felt dense with stale dust and an acrid smell of old oil and decay. Somewhere ahead, beyond a set of steel double doors, they believed Zara was being held by a rival crew that specialized in black market deals and possibly had a vendetta against her contract killer network. "Remember," Santiago hissed, his voice barely above a whisper. "We go in. Neutralize hostiles. Get Zara, then torch anything that might identify us. No one must connect this to you or me." Danny swallowed hard. Understood. They advanced carefully along the corridor, footsteps muted on cracked tiles. The faint hum of voices and a single overhead radio broadcast leaked from behind the double doors. Danny's heart pounded like a war drum, each beat a reminder of how far he had come from the moment he first considered eliminating Presley. Now, he was literally in the midst of a paramilitary raid, the final gambit to preserve his secret. One of Santiago's men knelt at the door, placing a small camera fiber under the threshold. On his phone screen, the camera feed showed a half-dozen armed men in a makeshift lounge area, rifles propped casually as they talked. Near them lay crates of contraband firearms, possibly drugs. And in the corner, a figure was bound to a chair. Zara. Her face was battered, hair matted with blood. A single guard hovered near her, occasionally prodding her with questions or demands. Santiago's jaw clenched at the sight. "They're trying to break her. If she talks, your name and mine both come out." He turned to Danny. "We breach, now. Quick, lethal. You handle the guard near Zara. Keep him from shooting her or moving her." Danny nodded, sweat beading on his brow. He steeled himself. He thought of Alina, that every step he took was to protect her future. Then he signaled readiness. With swift efficiency, they set a small breaching charge. A muffled pop, the door hinges blew inward. The team burst through in a coordinated sweep. Automatic gunfire erupted, muzzle flashes strobing the dim space. The rival crew reacted with alarm, scrambling for weapons. Shouts, curses, and the screech of bullets filled the air. Danny darted left, eyes fixed on the guard next to Zara. The guard, startled, raised his rifle. Danny fired first, a single shot that caught the man in the chest. The guard spun, collapsing with a choked gasp. Zara let out a muffled cry through the duct tape covering her mouth, eyes wide with equal parts relief and fear at the chaos erupting around her. Meanwhile, Santiago and his men unleashed precise bursts of gunfire. Two of the rival crew dropped instantly, never fully reaching their guns. Another tried to flip a table for cover, but was riddled with bullets. The few who managed to fire off rounds were quickly suppressed by Santiago's lethal accuracy. Amid the cacophony, a final hostile sprung from behind crates aiming at Danny. Danny whirled, firing 2 shots. The enemy crumpled. The sudden hush that followed was jarring, a rapid shift from thunderous violence to eerie quiet. The entire firefight took barely half a minute, yet it left the warehouse thick with the smell of gunpowder and fresh blood. Danny rushed to Zara's side. The woman's eyes flickered with recognition behind her battered face. He knelt, carefully peeling the duct tape from her mouth, then slicing through the ropes binding her wrists. She gasped for breath, voice shaky. You actually came," she rasped, trying to maintain her usual aloof facade but betraying exhaustion. Santiago joined them, scanning for more threats. "Damn right we did," he muttered. He gave Zara a once-over. "Are you in shape to move?" Zara nodded, trembling as she attempted to stand. "They didn't break me," she hissed, defiance glinting in her eyes. "But they were close." She glanced at Danny, faint gratitude shining despite her pain. "We have to clear out. They might have reinforcements." One of Santiago's men rummaged through the debris. "Found a back office. Looks like they recorded some of their interrogations." He hoisted a battered laptop and a stack of papers. "We should burn these. They might implicate us, especially Zara." Santiago agreed. "Do it." Then he locked eyes with Danny. "Now we tie up loose ends." He gestured at the fallen hostiles or the ones still groaning from wounds, ensuring they were definitively out of commission. Danny's stomach twisted, but he forced himself to keep it together. This was the world he had stumbled into. Minutes later, they poured gasoline on crates and documents in a corner, lighting a flame that quickly roared. The flickering firelight cast dancing shadows on the blood-stained concrete. Zara leaned on Danny's shoulder for support as they moved toward the exit. The last of the wounded enemies were silenced by Santiago's men, with grim efficiency shots echoing in the background. Each pop hammered Danny's conscience, but he kept moving. Outside, they piled into 2 vans, hearts pounding. Smoke billowed from the warehouse behind them as they sped off. The group had succeeded in retrieving Zara, but the cost lingered in Danny's mind. Another body count added to the saga of his hidden sins. Zara slumped in the back seat, groaning softly. That was their main cell, but I fear they have more allies. They grabbed me because they wanted to topple our entire organization. We must vanish until the dust settles. She locked eyes with Danny. You realize your identity remains safe. I won't betray you after you risked your life for me. A shaky exhale escaped him. Thank you, he said, though relief was tempered by the knowledge that this fiasco could flare again any time. But what about Detective Adelaide? She's still out there. Santiago's expression darkened. We can't risk more attempts with the infiltration. We'll regroup. For now, your biggest threat is the police's official channels. On that front, you're on your own. Shortly after, they dropped Danny near his car, parked in a dark lot. Zara, still wounded, gave him a final nod from inside the van. Stay quiet, Morrison. We've vanished now. Our group must rebuild from the shadows. If you need us again, well, let's pray you don't. The van roared away, leaving Danny alone under the pale glow of a street lamp, the echoes of gunfire still ringing in his mind. He sank behind the wheel, adrenaline dissipating into sheer exhaustion. He had done it, helped rescue Zara. But the fundamental problem remained: Adelaide's unstoppable investigation. He drove home in a daze, checking the time. 3 a.m. Alina was presumably safe at her friend's. He collapsed onto the couch, trembling with each breath, as the magnitude of his double life threatened to crush him. Murder, cover-ups, infiltration. The price of protecting his secret was devouring him from within. The following day, the city was ablaze with news. A warehouse fire leaving multiple bodies, believed to be part of a gang shootout. Danny watched the coverage on TV with Alina, feigning disinterest. But inside, he recognized the scene he'd left behind. The anchor speculated about ties to organized crime. No mention of him, no mention of Zara. For now, they were invisible in the chaos. Alina turned to him, eyes shadowed with worry. It's so scary how much violence is happening lately. Are you sure we're safe, Dad? He mustered a reassuring smile, pulling her into a brief hug. We're safe. Don't worry, sweetheart. He switched off the TV, hoping to shift focus. Let's do something fun, maybe watch a movie. Meanwhile, at the precinct, Detective Adelaide studied the new crime scene photos from the warehouse shootout. The coroner's preliminary report indicated multiple gunmen died, possibly from crossfire. Traces of accelerant hinted at purposeful destruction of evidence. This lined up suspiciously with the pattern of a professional network tying up loose ends. Then came the big break. A partial ballistic match from a shell casing at Redwood Overlook to some recovered at the warehouse. This strongly suggested the same group behind both the detective's ambush and the warehouse shootout. Adelaide's mind raced, concluding that the same ring who tried to kill her was now erasing an internal threat. The missing piece. How does Danny Morrison tie in? Garza strode over, brandishing a manila folder. We have the subpoena results on Danny Morrison's finances, she said, excitement creeping into her normally stoic voice. He made suspicious withdrawals around the times each victim died or vanished. They total nearly $120,000 in unaccounted funds. Adelaide's pulse quickened. That's substantial. Enough to hire serious professionals. Let's also see if his phone's location pings near anywhere shady. Garza nodded. Working on it. We also found something interesting. A small deposit from an overseas account that then got funneled back out. Possibly money laundering steps. We'll press him on it. A fierce determination lit Adelaide's eyes. We'll bring him in for official questioning next. He might try to stonewall, but we have enough to corner him. They shared a glance, awareness that the man they suspected was cunning. But for the first time, they had tangible evidence of wrongdoing, an essential step to building a real case. That evening, Danny answered his phone to a tense Adelaide on the line. Mr. Morrison, we've uncovered significant irregularities in your finances. We'd like you to come to the station tomorrow morning for questioning. He forced calm, stomach twisting. Of course, Detective. I'll be there at 9 a.m. Hanging up, he exhaled shakily. The net was closing. No Zara backup. No plausible deniability for the suspicious withdrawals. Even if he concocted a story about gambling or black market investments, Adelaide would see through it. Unless he pinned everything on Presley's manipulations, he spent a sleepless night drafting a half-lie, half-truth explanation. Presley extorted him for hush money to hide some scandal. So he withdrew funds under duress. He'd claim he had no idea what she planned with it. Possibly that might buy time. But if Adelaide was determined, she might tear it apart. He stared at the ceiling in the darkness, feeling the house stifling. Another wave of fear for Alina's future overcame him. His illusions of controlling the narrative were unraveling. Tomorrow's interrogation loomed like a final crossroads. Chapter 10. Morning arrived with a dull gray sky, reflecting Danny's grim mood. He dressed carefully, sharp enough to appear respectable, casual enough not to look like he was trying too hard. Alina noticed his worried expression at breakfast. "Dad? You sure you're okay?" she repeated. He mustered a weak smile, brushing her cheek. "Just a busy day, honey. I'll handle it. Remember, I love you." She frowned but nodded, heading out for her school bus. He watched her leave, heart clenching as if it might be the last normal morning they'd share. By 9 a.m., Danny stepped into the precinct's interrogation room, where Detective Adelaide and Detective Garza waited. The room felt oppressive. Plain gray walls, a metal table, chairs, a single overhead light. Adelaide had a stack of documents before her. She motioned for him to sit, her expression polite but unyielding. Garza started, voice even. "Mr. Morrison, we appreciate you coming in. We want to discuss some financial transactions. Specifically, these withdrawals, $15,000 on the 2nd of last month, $30,000 on the 10th, so on. Did you realize they coincide with the approximate times each suspect related to Presley was killed or disappeared?" Danny feigned confusion. "What are you implying? That I paid someone to kill them? That's ridiculous. Presley and I might have had issues, but I'd never resort to murder." Adelaide's gaze sharpened. "Then why these untraceable cash movements? That's typical of paying for illicit services. Also, multiple logs show you were in places near crime scenes despite claiming alibis." He inhaled slowly, prepared for this. "Presley was blackmailing me, Detective. She threatened to accuse me of domestic abuse, or claim I assaulted her. She boasted about her affair partners backing her story. So I gave her hush money at intervals. She said she'd leave me alone if I paid. That's all. She must have used it for something else." "Now she's missing. Maybe she fled with that money." Garza arched an eyebrow. "You're saying you withdrew the funds to give to Presley, not a hitman?" "Yes," Danny replied firmly. "Check the diary she left. Maybe she wrote about extorting me." "I have reason to believe so." He realized he might use Presley's diaries as partial backup. Adelaide flipped a page. "Her diaries do mention extortion. However, the timeline is inconsistent. The last big withdrawal happened after she disappeared. Care to explain?" He stiffened. Ah, that was me trying to gather everything, hoping to hire a private investigator to find her or prove something. He realized the excuse sounded flimsy, but pressed on. Anyway, I wanted to see if she was gone for good. Adelaide exchanged a glance with Garza. The tension in the room thickened. Sighing, Adelaide leaned forward. Mr. Morrison, too many coincidences link you to these violent deaths. We suspect a professional ring. Is there anything else you want to disclose? Because if it turns out you finance these killers, you'll face conspiracy to commit homicide charges. A swirl of terror coiled in Danny's gut. He forced composure. I've told you the truth. I was a victim of my wife's manipulations. I had no idea about any professional ring. Garza tapped her pen. We can hold you for 48 hours, you know, while we investigate further. We have probable cause. A spike of panic shot through him. 48 hours in custody might unravel everything, further forensics, phone records. He decided to remain calm. Look, you won't find direct evidence. I'm a father who's done nothing but try to live after my cheating wife walked away. That's all. Adelaide eyed him with quiet frustration. So be it. We'll see what a judge thinks. For now, we'll process your statement. She stood abruptly, indicating the interview was over. Outside the interrogation room, they placed Danny in a small holding area while they conferred. A uniformed officer sat watch, flipping through a magazine. Time crawled. Danny's heart hammered as he envisioned them unearthing text logs or burner phone pings. If they pinned him, Alina's life would be shattered. He considered trying to escape, but that was madness. He'd never get far. Eventually, Garza returned, posture stiff. Mr. Morrison, you're free to go for now. We don't have enough to formally charge you yet, but stay available. We're not done. He nodded mutely, a swirl of relief and dread, freed for the moment. Outside, Adelaide intercepted him near the exit, her expression pensive. Why are you risking so much, Danny? If you were truly just a father who wanted Presley gone, there are less extreme ways. Something deeper is at play. She paused. I saw your face in there, a mix of guilt and desperation. If you come clean, maybe you can salvage a fraction of your life. Think about it. He inhaled sharply, heart pounding. I'm not confessing to something I didn't do. Then, he walked away into the busy street, ignoring the tremor in his chest. She was right about guilt, but he'd never concede it. Not now. Back home, he found Alina rummaging the closet. She turned, startled. Oh, hey. I was just looking for that old photo album. Thought I might do a project for school about family history. She frowned. But everything's disorganized. Did Mom? He quickly diverted. Mom probably moved stuff. Let me help later. Right now, let's grab dinner. The forced cheer in his voice made her suspicious, but she nodded. Late that night, Danny was awoken by knocking at the front door. Clutching a robe, he opened it to find Adelaide again, alone, looking tense. Detective? He said, confusion spiking. It's nearly midnight. Her eyes flickered with urgency. I need to talk. Off the record. He hesitated, then stepped aside, letting her in. Alina was asleep, so they kept voices low in the living room. Adelaide exhaled. I'm risking my career being here. But listen, I found ballistic evidence linking the Redwood Overlook attack to a group connected to numerous hits. Everything points to you as their client. But I can't close the loop. The forensics remain inconclusive. The only reason I'm telling you this is I suspect there's a bigger conspiracy. The city is infected with these contract killers. He swallowed, concealing alarm. Why tell me? She studied his face. Because I've realized something. You might be a pawn, not the mastermind. These killers, they don't just vanish unless they've got major backing. Maybe you were extorted into paying them. Or maybe you have no idea how they used you. If you help me blow it wide open, we can cut you a deal." His mind raced. She was offering an out if he cooperated, but cooperating meant confessing everything. That would still ruin him, but maybe he'd avoid a life sentence. He pictured Alina's face. Possibly better to be alive behind bars than on the run forever? Adelaide pressed on, voice hushed but earnest. "I see how you look at your daughter, how you keep protesting innocence. If you really want to protect her, stop this cat-and-mouse. Let's bring them down. I promise I'll do my best to help you." He opened his mouth, torn. Before he could speak, a violent crash rang from outside a car, ramming into the porch steps. Bullets shattered the front window. Adelaide dove behind the couch. Danny hit the floor. Automatic gunfire peppered the living room. Someone was attacking again, presumably from the street. Alina screamed from upstairs, confusion and terror in her voice. "Dad!" Adelaide whipped out her service pistol, yelling, "Stay down!" She crawled to the window, returning a few shots at the muzzle flashes in the darkness. Danny scrambled, heart hammering as he realized a new hit squad had come for him, and maybe for Adelaide, too. The house's walls splintered under the barrage. He shouted up the stairs, "Alina! Lock your door! And stay away from windows!" She responded with a frightened sob, but he heard the door slam upstairs. Good. Adelaide called into her radio, "Shots fired at Morrison residence, request immediate backup." The firefight raged. The attackers wore body armor and used rifles. Adelaide and Danny were pinned behind furniture, gunshots flying. A bullet grazed Danny's shoulder, pain searing. He grunted, returning a desperate shot that forced one assailant to duck behind a mailbox. Sirens wailed in the distance. The cavalry was coming. The attackers, sensing time was short, tried a final push. One kicked the front door, lobbing a smoke canister. Adelaide coughed as smoke filled the living room. Through the haze, she saw a silhouette raising a rifle. She fired twice, clipping the silhouette. Another figure popped up behind them, aiming at Danny. Without hesitation, Adelaide pivoted, pulled the trigger. Her bullet slammed into the second man's chest, dropping him. The remaining gunman outside cursed, sprinting back to a waiting SUV. Tires screeched. They roared away before the sirens converged. In seconds, squad cars swarmed, red-blue lights dancing across the bullet-riddled facade of Danny's home. Uniformed cops poured out, weapons drawn, while paramedics rushed in. A trembling Alina peered from the top of the stairs, tears streaking her face. Danny rushed up to hug her. Meanwhile, Adelaide signaled to the arriving officers that the threat had fled. She turned to Danny, her face a mixture of worry and grim vindication. "Still think you're safe?" she asked softly. He could only shake his head, shell-shocked. The illusions of secrecy had shattered. Now the entire neighborhood had seen a vicious assault on his house, likely confirming the presence of a deadly conspiracy swirling around him. Within hours, the Morrison house became a war zone of forensic teams, police tape, bullet casings, and shattered glass. Alina, dazed and tearful, was taken to a neighbor's place for the night. Danny found himself giving a statement to an incensed Detective Garza, while Adelaide tried to piece together the puzzle of how these criminals tracked Danny's location so boldly. An FBI liaison, Agent Emmanuel Ortega, arrived, stepping in with authority. The scale of the attacks, multiple homicides, plus an assault on a detective, had escalated the case to federal attention. Ortega took charge of the scene, questioning everyone with meticulous detail. Adelaide cornered Danny in a side yard, away from prying ears. Her hair was disheveled, eyes sharp with adrenaline. "Now do you see the stakes? They're not done until you're dead unless you break this cycle. Let me help you for real." He clutched the back of his neck, heart racing. The police glare across the yard, left him feeling trapped. Slowly, as if an invisible weight pressed on him, he said, "They're unstoppable. Even if I talk, they might kill me anyway." She softened her tone. "We have witness protection, resources, but I can't guarantee your safety if you keep silent. We can't guard you 24/7. Let me get you a deal with the DA. You'll face some consequences, but Alina can remain with family while you navigate sentencing. It's better than dying or going on the run." He stared at the starless sky, tears burning behind his eyes. "I need to talk to my daughter. Then maybe—" Adelaide nodded, stepping back. "Time is short. The next attempt could be tomorrow." That night, Danny found Alina sleeping fitfully at the neighbor's guest room. He gently woke her, cradling her trembling form. "Baby, I'm so sorry," he murmured, tears threatening. "Everything is complicated, but I promise, I'll keep you safe." Her eyes brimmed with confusion. "Dad, who's shooting at us? Why? Does it have to do with Mom? The detective said something about your finances." She was old enough to suspect deeper truths. He choked up. "Alina, I can't explain everything yet, but please, trust me. Everything I've done is to protect you from a horrible fate. I might have to go away for a while, but I'll never stop loving you." She sobbed, hugging him. "Please, Dad, don't leave me." Early dawn found him on the phone with a battered, exhausted-sounding Zara. She had reappeared, albeit in hiding. "I heard about the attempt on your house," she said, voice taut. "We suspect the rival group is moving aggressively. Even your detective is a target. Our entire operation is in disarray." "Good luck out there." He nearly scoffed. "Now you say good luck? I might flip on everything to the cops." He tested her reaction, half wanting her to discourage him. Zara's tone turned ice cold. "That would be your grave. We have fail-safes. If you betray us, the black files go public incriminating you. We can push out the truth of your contract to any law enforcement channel. You'll face the death penalty for orchestrating 4 murders. Consider carefully." His breath caught. So even if he cooperated with Adelaide, the group might release damning proof. He hung up, mind spinning. He truly was cornered on both sides. Later that morning, Agent Ortega convened a multi-agency briefing at the precinct. Adelaide, Garza, local detectives, and some FBI staff gathered in a conference room. Ortega pinned photos of the murdered lovers, Presley, Redwood Overlook, and now Danny's bullet-ridden home. "We have a confirmed pattern of professional hits. We suspect multiple operators. The target is also Detective Davis. We strongly suspect Danny Morrison is central, whether as a puppet or mastermind." Adelaide stepped forward, explaining her near kidnapping, the unknown ally who gave her partial intel about an assassin ring. She pressed the envelope's cryptic references to Zara. A hush fell over the room as the magnitude of a citywide contract-killing ring sank in. Garza concluded, "We must either arrest Morrison or turn him as an informant. The group behind him must be dismantled from within." Within hours, a formal arrest warrant for Danny was drawn up. They had enough circumstantial evidence to hold him for conspiracy, though it was risky. Adelaide hesitated privately if they arrested him. The real killers might slip away, or the ring might silence him in custody. But Ortega insisted, "We can't let him roam free, given the threats." So the operation was set. That evening, a SWAT team would move in. Adelaide requested to handle the approach personally, hoping to avoid a violent confrontation. At Danny's destroyed house, he rummaged through the wreckage, gathering some essentials. Alina was safe at a friend's place, away from the danger. A friend from the security firm had offered him a couch, but he hesitated, suspecting the police might follow him. He took a battered duffel bag outside, only to find Adelaide and a squad of armed officers waiting in the yard, weapons drawn but lowered. Her eyes flicked with sorrow. "Danny Morrison, we have a warrant for your arrest. Put the bag down, hands up." He froze, mind screaming. "I can't, my daughter." Adelaide stepped forward, eyes holding both pity and resolve. "We'll keep her protected. This is how it has to be. Don't make it worse." He slowly set the bag down. As he raised his hands, anger and despair mingled. The SWAT officers cuffed him. As they led him to the waiting squad car, he locked eyes with Adelaide. "They'll kill me in jail. You realize that?" She held his gaze. "We'll place you in protective custody. But you have to cooperate. This is your chance to do right by Alina by giving us the truth." He let out a ragged sigh, shoulders slumping in defeat, and allowed them to take him away, the swirl of red-blue lights painting the scene of his final surrender. In the interrogation room, again, but this time under arrest, Danny sat in cuffs. Adelaide and Garza faced him across the table. He looked hollow, barely sleeping. Garza started, "Mr. Morrison, you're charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Potentially 4 counts if we connect you to each victim. This can lead to life in prison or worse. If you want to mitigate that, talk." Adelaide inhaled. "We can recommend protective custody. If you name the people who carried out Presley's murder and the rest, we can negotiate. But time is short. Your associates may already plan to silence you from behind bars." He stared at the table for a long moment, torn between Zara's threat to expose him fully and the cop's promise of partial mercy. Eventually, with trembling breath, he began, I hired them. The group led by a woman named Zara. She has a man named Santiago, the soup maker. They eliminated Presley and her 3 lovers. I can give you details on payment, phone logs, meeting points. But you have to protect my daughter no matter what." Adelaide exhaled, shock and relief mingling in her face. "That's big. We'll do everything to keep Alina safe. We can place her under a protective family or guardianship. You will put in a special facility. This is going to be messy, but if we can get evidence on Zara's ring, we can end it." Garza stepped out, alerting their superiors. For the next hours, Danny spilled partial truths, omitting some details about the infiltration fiasco or the second rescue of Zara, but enough to confirm the existence of the contract ring, the method of payment, and the individual's roles. He described how Presley threatened him, how he was cornered. He confessed his moral downfall, tears occasionally choking his words. By dawn, the DA had authorized a preliminary deal. Danny would remain in a high-security protective unit while detectives launched an official manhunt for Zara, Santiago, and their group. In exchange, the DA would consider reduced charges, likely decades in prison, but possibly sparing him from a life sentence or capital punishment. Weary, Danny let himself be led to a holding cell. Sorrow welled as he thought of Alina, yet a strange sense of relief enveloped him. No more secrets. No more living in constant terror of exposure. The path forward was grim, but at least it was honest. Chapter 11. 2 weeks after Danny's confession, the city reeled from the shocking revelations of a murder-for-hire ring colluding with a scorned husband. The media exploded with sensational headlines. Cheating wife's husband hires killers 4 dead, detective survives. Detective Adelaide found herself thrust into the spotlight, both lauded for her resilience and scrutinized for the near-fatal ambush at Redwood Overlook. In the precinct's operations center, Adelaide coordinated with the FBI's Agent Ortega and local SWAT teams to track down Zara's ring. The partial data from Danny's testimony gave them addresses of safe houses, a list of contacts. Some leads panned out raids, found empty apartments or booby-trapped dens. A few minor members were arrested, but Zara and Santiago remained elusive. One mild afternoon, Adelaide took a break from the hectic manhunt to visit Danny in the protective custody wing of the county jail. He was behind reinforced glass, wearing an orange jumpsuit, face lined with exhaustion. She picked up the phone on her side of the glass partition, and he did the same. "Any progress?" he asked dully. She nodded. "We've shut down some subcells, seized weapons, arrested half a dozen lower-level operatives. But Zara and that soup maker Santiago are ghosts. Possibly out of state. We're still pushing." He bowed his head. "They threatened to release evidence framing me fully if I talked. Guess it doesn't matter now." Adelaide sighed. "We found partial blackmail docs on the dark web, but we suppressed them. The feds are working to sanitize it. The final truth about your involvement is overshadowed by your cooperation. People see you as a perpetrator, yes, but also manipulated by Presley's betrayal and the ring's cunning." She paused. "You'll still face sentencing, but the DA might be lenient if we capture the ring's leaders." He managed a faint, hopeless smile. "At least Alina is safe, right?" Her gaze softened. "Yes. We placed her with your sister in the next county. She'll remain under protective watch. She's adjusting, though she misses you. She's old enough to grasp you did terrible things, but also that you're paying for them." He swallowed hard, tears threatening. "Thank you." Elsewhere, on a remote ranch across the state line, Zara and Santiago huddled in a dusty barn with a few loyal operatives. The infiltration had decimated their once powerful ring. Now they were fugitives, hunted by both law enforcement and the rival group. Zara, still bearing bruises from her captivity, clenched her jaw as Santiago outlined the bleak status. Multiple safe houses raided, bank accounts frozen or flagged. Their network crumbled. Zara's eyes burned with a mix of fury and betrayal. "So Morrison cracked under pressure," she spat, referencing Danny. "I guess it was inevitable. He's no hardened criminal, just a desperate father." She paced, cursing under her breath. "We can't do big hits anymore. We're on every watch list." Santiago crossed his arms. "We vanish, rebuild in another city or country. The infiltration remains. Our own men might have sold us out. We can't trust anyone." She raked her hair back. "Yes, but I want to make sure that detective pays." She pressed a palm to her bruised ribs. "She's the reason we lost so many ops, because she just wouldn't die." And Morrison's confession sealed it. Santiago frowned. "We have bigger concerns than revenge on a single cop. If we try to kill her again, we risk an unstoppable manhunt." Zara's eyes narrowed, voice icy. "Maybe so, but I won't forget. For now we hide. Later, we settle accounts." Back at the precinct, Agent Ortega approached Adelaide with a fresh lead. "We tracked new chatter from the southwestern border. Zara's rumored to be heading toward Mexico, possibly forging new alliances. If she's gone, we might never extradite her. That leaves the soup maker, too." Adelaide exhaled. "We can't let them vanish. They murdered so many, nearly ended me. Plus, who knows how many new hits they'll do. Let's coordinate with Border Patrol. I'll also see if Danny has any last intel that might confirm their route." She visited Danny again. In the sterile interrogation room, he sat across from her, shoulders slumped. "Zara might flee south," she said. "Any clue? Did she mention a safe route or contact there?" He rubbed his temple. "During that infiltration fiasco, she mentioned a cousin in Tijuana, but I have no specifics." Adelaide jotted it down. "We'll pass it on. Also, your sentencing hearing is soon. The DA is finalizing charges. Might be 25 years, maybe 15 if you keep cooperating. Manslaughter, conspiracy, some combination." She paused, sympathy flickering. "I know that's not what you want to hear, but it's better than life without parole." He closed his eyes, breath shaky. "I deserve it. Just promise me Alina is okay." She gave a gentle nod. "She's attending therapy, adjusting. She'll be offered a new start." In a final stroke of luck, border intel spotted a suspicious convoy near a desert crossing. The license plates matched partial data from Zara's known associates. A high-speed chase ensued with local law enforcement. Shots were exchanged, leaving several vehicles wrecked. The dust settled with the ringleaders missing. But a captured underling gave a statement, revealing that Zara and Santiago escaped on foot into the desert. The next day, a battered news helicopter soared over the desert, capturing images of a crashed SUV, bullet holes riddling its sides. The location matched the rumor of Zara's last stand. The broadcast speculated the ring's top leaders might have died or be in hiding. For Adelaide, it was frustratingly inconclusive. No bodies were found, just footprints leading into the vast wilderness. Time moved forward. Over the following months, the case's intensity simmered down. With no new sightings, authorities declared Zara's ring effectively dismantled. The DA shifted focus to prosecuting Danny, whose partial confession and cooperation sealed the case. In a highly publicized trial, the court unveiled the horrifying details of the murder-for-hire scheme. Prosecutors painted Danny as the prime mover seeking revenge on an unfaithful wife. The defense argued he was a broken man, coerced by Presley's manipulations and threatened by the killers themselves. On sentencing day, the courtroom was packed with reporters, curious onlookers, and the families of victims. A hush fell as the judge delivered the verdict. "Daniel Morrison, you have pled guilty to conspiracy in the deaths of Presley Morrison and 3 individuals, plus attempted murder of Detective Adelaide Davis. Considering your cooperation, this court sentences you to 25 years in a federal penitentiary, with eligibility for parole after 15 years under strict conditions." An audible murmur spread through the crowd. Danny bowed his head, tears slipping down his cheeks. He turned slightly, spotting Alina in the gallery, flanked by her aunt. Their eyes met in a moment of silent heartbreak. Alina's face was streaked with tears, but she managed a small nod, as if to say she'd endure. Adelaide watched from behind the prosecutor's bench, arms crossed. She felt a strange mix of triumph and pity. The ring was mostly dismantled, but Zara and Santiago roamed free. Danny paid a heavy price, yet a flicker of justice was served for the 4 murders. Adelaide caught Danny's eye briefly. He gave a solemn, resigned look before court officers led him away in handcuffs. In the weeks following, Alina visited Danny once in jail before he was transferred. The father and daughter sat across a bulletproof window, phone receivers in hand. Alina tried not to cry. I still love you, Dad. Even with everything, you're my father." He pressed a shaking hand to the glass. "I'm so sorry, Alina. I thought I was protecting you. I ended up destroying so much. But you have a future focus on that. Let me bear this burden." She sobbed softly. "I will, and I'll visit whenever I can." She hesitated. "Detective Davis said she'd help me apply for scholarships. She's not as bad as I thought." He swallowed thickly. "She's a good cop, just doing her duty. I'm grateful she's looking out for you. Don't blame her for any of this." They exchanged a final tearful goodbye, the phone going silent as a guard tapped Alina's shoulder gently, leading her away. Life resumed a new normal. Alina moved in with her aunt, finishing high school. Detective Adelaide, after the dust settled, returned to her routine of chasing criminals. The ring's remaining fragments scattered. Occasionally, rumors of Zara or Santiago surfaced, alleged sightings in Mexico, or cryptic references on the black market, but never enough to confirm. The case remained open, an unsolved thread in the city's criminal tapestry. For Danny, Prison walls replaced the illusions of suburban stability. He woke each day in a steel bunk, haunted by memories of Presley's betrayal, the lover's murders, and the final choice that led him here. Over time, he found a strange acceptance, pouring his guilt into prison therapy sessions. He told himself that if Alina thrived, at least his suffering served a purpose. Chapter 12. 6 months after Danny's sentencing, the city had mostly moved on from the scandal. The tabloids no longer splashed daily updates about the cheating wife murder saga. A sense of closure lingered, though some details, like how exactly the murders were orchestrated, remained murky to the public. For Detective Adelaide, the case left scars. She carried the memory of multiple near-death experiences and at times wondered if Zara lurked in the shadows, plotting revenge. She also found a renewed sense of purpose, exposing criminal networks that preyed on vulnerable people. One crisp autumn morning, Adelaide sat at her desk in the precinct reading an old note from the Redwood Overlook fiasco. She still occasionally had nightmares about that night, but the nightmares fueled her drive. The ring might be quiet, but she wanted to ensure they never re-emerged. Garza approached with a small grin. "Got a letter for you from the prison. Morrison wrote you." Adelaide blinked in surprise. "He wrote me? Why?" She tore open the envelope. Inside was a short letter in neat handwriting. "Detective Davis, I can't undo what I did, but I need you to know I'm grateful for how you treated Alina. She's everything to me. I was angry at you for a long time, but I see now you were just doing your job. Thank you for keeping her safe. I accept my fate. If you ever find Zara or the soup maker, I hope justice comes swiftly so no one else gets hurt. Danny Morrison." Adelaide exhaled, reading the lines multiple times. A quiet hush settled over her mind. She tucked the letter away, deciding not to respond but feeling a subtle closure of her own. In a more remote corner of the state, a battered but once a lavish safe house sat empty. On a table, a single phone lay, vibrating. The camera panned, in a cinematic sense, to reveal Santiago standing by, arms crossed, face set with grim determination. Zara, still sporting a faint scar on her cheek, picked up the phone. She listened to an unknown voice. A flicker of frustration crossed her features. She hung up. Her eyes flickered. "That was an old ally from Europe. The heat on us is too high. The last infiltration nearly destroyed our entire operation. But there's a job overseas that might rebuild our resources." She turned to Santiago, voice tinged with bitterness. "We can't operate here without eventually crossing that detective again. Let's vanish for a while." Santiago nodded. "We'll return to take our vengeance when the time is right. Meanwhile, we keep a low profile." They began packing duffel bags with weapons, false passports, and stacks of currency. The final shot. Them stepping out into the dawn, heading for a black SUV. The engine revved, carrying them into the unknown. Their legacy lingered like a poison, waiting to resurface. Back in the city, as the weeks turned to months, Alina settled into life with her aunt, occasionally visiting Danny in prison. The visits were painful yet healing. She blossomed into a determined young adult, resolute to break the cycle of violence. She joined volunteer programs for at-risk teens, channeling her trauma into helping others. She wrote heartfelt letters to her father about her progress, each letter a thread of hope bridging the prison walls. Danny, behind bars, found a measure of peace. Over time, he built a reputation as a calm inmate who helped quell disputes. In therapy sessions, he confessed the darkest corners of his guilt, the twisted sense of relief that Presley's manipulations ended, and the shame of the monstrous path he chose. The prison chaplain reported he seemed genuinely remorseful, clinging to the idea that Alina's future was worth his sacrifice. Detective Adelaide, for her part, continued forging a name for herself in major crimes. She occasionally revisited the Morrison file, ensuring no loose ends threatened Alina. She saw to it the girl had every chance at scholarships, quietly pulling strings for resources. Though it wasn't standard procedure, she felt personally invested in ensuring the child of this tragedy could rise above the sins of her parents. One day, she visited Alina at a coffee shop off the record just to check on her well-being. Alina, now nearly finishing high school, smiled a bit shyly. "Thanks for everything, Detective," she said quietly, sipping her latte. "I know Dad put you through hell, but you still helped me." Adelaide gave a gentle nod, warmth in her eyes. "We can't choose our parents' decisions, but we can choose our own path. I see you forging a strong path, Alina. Keep going." Alina's eyes glimmered with gratitude, a final sign that some good can bloom from tragedy. A year later, after a swirl of complicated legalities, the Morrison house, once the site of bullet-riddled walls, was quietly sold. The new owners repainted and replaced shattered windows. The neighbors moved on from the memory of that violent night, though whispers occasionally surfaced about the cheating wife revenge murders. In prison, Danny received news that Alina had been accepted into an esteemed college, thanks to scholarships and her academic drive. Reading her letter, he sank to the bunk, tears of mixed sorrow and joy. She was free from the shadow of Presley's manipulations and his own monstrous choices, forging her own life. That knowledge gave him a sense of purpose to endure his sentence with dignity. In a final coda to the saga, a rumor arrived at the precinct's intelligence desk, an Interpol alert regarding a female suspect matching Zara's description seen in Spain. No arrests were made, but it signaled she was alive and expanding her network globally. Adelaide read the brief alert, her jaw setting with quiet determination. She filed it under international leads, a reminder that the fight wasn't truly over. The seeds of darkness Danny had sown, with Zara's help, might bloom again in another land. But for the city, justice had partially prevailed. The spree of contract murders ceased. Presley and her lovers remained gone, their bodies never fully accounted for, but recognized as casualties of a malignant underworld. The official narrative: a scorned husband arranged the hits, now paying with his freedom. Adelaide continued her mission to dismantle such criminal webs. Alina embarked on a promising future, determined not to be defined by her parents' tragic tale. 6 months turned into a year, then 2. Danny progressed in the prison system, maintaining good behavior. He read voraciously, devoured counseling on moral accountability. Some nights, he was haunted by nightmares of Presley's face, or the soup maker's savage grin, or Adelaide's bullet wound. But each morning, he rose determined to do better within his limited confines. Alina occasionally visited, each time older and more self-assured. She shared glimpses of her college life, her new friends, her plan to major in psychology. He beamed with fatherly pride, tears pricking his eyes at each mention. This was the closest he'd come to redemption, seeing Alina flourish. Detective Adelaide Davis found closure, too, though she kept a watchful eye on any new mention of Zara or Santiago. She refused to let them vanish entirely into the darkness. On her desk remained an old Polaroid from the Redwood Overlook. She sometimes studied it, recalling how close she came to death, and how a mysterious driver saved her. Part of her suspected it might have been a rogue ally from within the ring, but the question remained unsolved. She let it rest, focusing on protecting others from future violence. As the city resumed its normal hum, The cheating wife revenge scandal faded from headline memory, surviving only as a cautionary tale about betrayal, desperation, and contract killers lurking in the criminal underbelly. The moral, for those who still whispered about it, illusions of absolute control breed only more chaos. Danny's final acceptance showed that no one escapes the consequences of crossing that line. In the final months of his third year behind bars, Danny received an unexpected letter. The envelope bore no return address. Inside, a single piece of paper read, "We remain watchers in the shadow. Keep silent, or your daughter pays." He stared at the note for a long time, heart pounding. Santiago, or one of Zara's men, reminding him that even in prison he wasn't beyond their reach. A fresh wave of fear gnawed at him, but simultaneously he recognized that Adelaide's protective measures over Alina were robust. She was safe. He couldn't let terror break him again. He destroyed the note, burying that final threat in the recesses of his mind. Epilogue. 5 years later, Danny, now graying at the temples, stood in a prison yard, gazing at the chain-link fence topped with razor wire. A faint breeze rustled the dry grass. A correctional officer approached, clipboard in hand, informing him of a scheduled phone call. Taking a seat in the phone booth inside, he picked up the receiver to hear Alina's excited voice. "Dad, guess what? I got accepted into the graduate program I wanted. I'm interning with a counseling center that helps families deal with trauma. Detective Davis even wrote a reference letter for me." Danny closed his eyes, overwhelmed by gratitude and sorrow. "That's amazing, sweetheart. I'm so proud." She chuckled softly, warmth radiating even through the phone line. "It's thanks to everything you taught me, and maybe all the lessons from our messed-up past." "I won't let it define me or you, Dad." He fought back tears, a tightness in his chest. "I'm so happy for you, Alina. You're unstoppable." They talked a little longer about her future plans, about how her aunt was doing, about how Detective Davis still checked in from time to time. Then, the call ended with a gentle goodbye. Danny lingered, handset pressed to his ear as the dial tone hummed. For a moment, he pictured a life where he wasn't behind bars, where Presley and he parted amicably, no murders, no blood. That path never came to be. But in some small measure, he found a glimmer of redemption in Alina's triumph. He hung up the phone, returning to his cell with head held higher. Outside, the sky was bright, sunlight cutting across the yard. Each day, he carried the weight of guilt and the hope that Alina's new life remained untouched by the darkness he unleashed. Hey, listeners of Temptress Cheating Tales. If you enjoyed hearing this story and want to stay in the loop with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks for tuning in, and see you in the next wonderful story.